Excellencies, government and private sector representatives,
Excellences, représentants des gouvernements et des secteurs privés, chers invités, bienvenue à cette session plénière. Ne laissez personne de côté dans l'éducation aux médias et à l'information. Mobilisez les ressources pour un impact réel. La montée de la désinformation et de la mésinformation associée à la pandémie de Covid-19 et à d'autres questions sociales nous a rappelé l'urgence de permettre aux personnes de s'autonomiser eux-mêmes en ayant des compétences d'éducation aux médias et à l'information pour un esprit critique sur les contenus d'information. L'éducation aux médias et à l'information donne aux individus les connaissances et les compétences pour penser de manière critique sur différentes sources d'information, pour apprendre comment vérifier la véracité des contenus et pour être plus conscients de leur vie privée sur Internet. L'éducation aux médias et à l'information concerne toutes les parties prenantes et a un impact direct sur tous les secteurs économiques. L'action globale pour l'EMI travaille de manière participative et interdisciplinaire pour l'élaboration de stratégies et de politiques publiques pour mettre une base pour des sociétés de connaissances, pour le développement et pour la paix. Nous avons besoin d'un développement durable de l'éducation aux médias à l'information pour tous. L'éducation aux médias à l'information aide les individus à comprendre les implications sociétales des changements dans les flux d'informations, des technologies digitales et des médias. Nous reconnaissons que pour que l'EMI atteigne son potentiel, pour permettre à l'humanité d'entrer une nouvelle ère, il faut que les individus soient autonomisés pour pratiquer les éthiques de l'information, la sécurité et respectent les droits des autres. L'essence de cette conceptualisation de l'éducation aux médias à l'information, de ces compétences, se base sur le principe des droits fondamentaux et de la démocratie et se base donc dans les droits humains. L'éducation aux médias à l'information peut nous aider à comprendre et à reconstruire la croissance qui s'érode envers les médias et les institutions. Il faut renforcer la collaboration entre les parties prenantes public, privé et la société civile pour faire en sorte que l'éducation aux médias et l'information soit pour tous et pour répondre aux défis d'aujourd'hui et de demain. Le financement pour l'éducation aux médias et l'information et les actions dans ce domaine sont trop faibles en ce moment. Et il nous faut une action internationale pour s'assurer que personne ne soit laissé de côté dans la recherche pour une éducation aux médias et l'information pour tous. L'objectif de cette session, c'est d'initier un dialogue entre les acteurs clés pour mettre en place des partenariats, souligner l'urgence d'un fonds de financement pour l'éducation aux médias et à l'information à l'échelle mondiale et d'appeler toute la communauté internationale et les partenaires de l'UNESCO à agir dans ce domaine. Cette session suit le dialogue historique de haut niveau de la session d'ouverture et le premier panel de haut niveau d'hier. Nous avons la directrice générale de l'UNESCO et la DG pour la communication qui a rejoint des partenaires multilatéraux du monde entier pour la première fois pour parler de l'urgence de l'éducation aux médias et à l'information. Aujourd'hui, nous continuons de nous concentrer sur la question de positionner l'éducation aux médias et à l'information dans l'agenda de développement international. Cette session va permettre à des parties prenantes clés de partager leur expérience. Elle va contribuer au networking des acteurs clés qui s'intéressent ou travaillent sur la mise en œuvre, le financement des initiatives d'éducation aux médias et à l'information. L'UNESCO a hâte de créer des synergies pour transformer des vies dans ce domaine. Cette semaine mondiale de l'éducation aux médias et à l'information qui va du 25 au 29 octobre nous donne une plateforme de collaboration. Alors maintenant, je voudrais tourner votre attention vers nos différents panélistes qui nous ont rejoints aujourd'hui. Nous avons 6 orateurs. D'abord, M. Larm Amreus, le président de l'Agence suédoise de coopération internationale au développement de Suède. Madame Samia Bibar, ministère plénipotentiaire et directrice du département du suivi et de la gestion des crises, secteur des médias et de l'information de la Ligue arabe. Madame Vera Elstrom, conseillère principale, section des droits de l'homme, de la démocratie et de l'égalité des sexes, ministère norvégien des Affaires des étrangères, Norvège. Madame Raim Jinani, responsable de la division organisation et comité et partenariats internationaux de l'ICESCO et qui parle au nom du directeur général, Monsieur Matt Cook, chef du Google News Lab au Royaume-Uni. Enfin, Monsieur Shun Sakamoto, professeur département de l'apprentissage tout au long de la vie et des études de carrière, Japon, s'exprimant au nom du ministère des Affaires étrangères du Japon. Donc maintenant, je voudrais donner la parole aux orateurs et inviter la première personne à partager ses expériences, Monsieur Lars Amreus. La Suède est l'un des donateurs principaux pour les programmes d'éducation aux médias et à l'information de l'UNESCO. C'est important que vous soyez une partie prenante de cette célébration, de cette semaine mondiale de l'éducation aux médias et à l'information, et je voudrais vous donner la parole. Merci beaucoup. Tout d'abord, je voudrais vous remercier pour cette opportunité d'être ici aujourd'hui et de parler de ce sujet tout à fait important, l'éducation aux médias et à l'information. Comme vous l'avez dit, je suis le président du conseil d'administration de l'Agence suédoise de coopération internationale au développement en Suède. Et ce conseil d'administration est nommé par le gouvernement suédois et c'est l'organe le plus important de l'agence de développement. Au cours de l'année dernière, nous avons vu que cette capacité de collecter, de mettre en contexte l'information peut faire la différence entre la vie et la mort pour les individus. Nous faisons face à des questions similaires sur les vaccins, le virus, sa diffusion, et la capacité à analyser l'information, à comprendre ce qui est digne de confiance et ce qui est de la désinformation est devenu tout à fait essentiel. Pendant cette crise de la COVID-19, il est devenu de plus en plus évident comment l'éducation aux médias et à l'information donne des outils aux individus pour analyser l'information, pour qu'ils puissent prendre des décisions adaptées pour se protéger eux-mêmes, pour protéger leur famille, ainsi que la société dans son ensemble. La capacité à avoir accès à utiliser et à analyser de manière critique l'information est essentielle pour les droits humains et pour participer entièrement dans la démocratie. La capacité à utiliser Internet et d'autres outils numériques est cruciale également pour pouvoir bénéficier de la révolution numérique et de toutes les opportunités qu'elle apporte. Et donc, cette question de la fracture numérique, c'est un défi qui a été révélé par la pandémie. Nous voyons que beaucoup de parties de nos vies quotidiennes se sont transférées en ligne pendant cette pandémie. Nous allons à l'école en ligne, nous achetons en ligne, nous voyons le médecin en ligne, nous parlons de politique, nous avons des manifestations en ligne et nous sommes aussi surveillés en ligne. Et je pense que la possibilité à faire face à cette transition numérique et à en bénéficier, elle est différente dans les pays riches et dans les pays pauvres. Elle est différente dans les villes modernes et dans les zones rurales qui n'ont pas forcément accès à l'électricité, mais aussi elle est différente pour les plus âgés et les plus jeunes. L'éducation aux médias et à l'information est devenue l'un des plus grands défis de notre époque.
Many aspects. So let me take this opportunity to encourage other donors, as well as partners from the private sector, to recognize the importance of media and information literacy as building block in this work. The drive for democracy aims to initiate a renewed and revitalized effort to support and strengthen democracy worldwide, online and offline. We must actively protect democracy and its principles, including a free and independent media, as today these are increasingly undermined and challenged. The space for civil society continues to shrink, and human rights defenders and journalists are being attacked. Women journalists are especially targeted. This is happening all over the world, and it affects us all. To strengthen dialogue and to counter disinformation, we need to support independent journalism and a pluralistic media environment, as well as strengthening digital media literacy. The urgency of this was highlighted by this year's Nobel Prize laureate Maria Ressa and the online newspaper Rappler, with their endless struggle against disinformation and their investigative work on fake news stories and how those are being used. Maria Ressa was also an illustrative case study in UNESCO's important report earlier this year on gender-based violence online directed towards journalists. So let me also commend you on this work. In the light of the Nobel Peace Prize, let me say that even though media and information literacy is an important goal in itself, the overarching issue is freedom of expression. We have seen repressive regimes use the pandemic to shrink the democratic space and the freedom of expression to an extent that must be assessed as unreasonable. Freedom of opinion depends on the possibility to receive information and the ability to analyze this information. This is why media and information literacy is critical and even more important in defending freedom of expression, freedom of opinion, and the democratic space. Now, Sweden is currently the largest donor of voluntary contributions to UNESCO. We support many different actions, and in the period of 2018 to 2022, we invest a total of $135 million. This autumn, we are preparing for a new period, and we are strongly committed to continued support of UNESCO. A substantial part of our funding will be dedicated to areas such as freedom of expression, education for all, and democracy, areas which are all crucial in the context of media and information literacy. For the communication and information sector, Sweden provides flexible and unearmarked support, a total of $10.5 million through two multi-donor special accounts for media development, one for safety of journalists and one for freedom of expression. We were especially proud that we could add 8 million Swedish crowns to our support last year when we recognized UNESCO's swift adaptation to the new situation in the pandemic. Media and information literacy is vital for the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals as set out in Agenda 2030. In particular, SDG 1610, to ensure public access to information and protect fundamental freedoms, for which UNESCO is the custodian agency. The International Programme for the Development of Communication, IPDC, as the only multilateral forum in the UN system designed to discuss and promote media development, is an important forum for a rights-based, open, and accessible internet for all. Media and information literacy is a broad concept that concerns many policy areas, including education, media, technology, and human rights. To meet this cross-sectoral challenge, we must involve a broad range of actors, including government agencies, international organizations, civil society, and private actors. No international actor is better suited for this task than UNESCO, thanks to its ability to bring together actors from across the world and from across different sectors. We hope more donors and partners will follow in support for this collaboration so that we can combine efforts and resources in order to ensure and to strengthen media and information literacy competencies globally. I wish you all the best of luck during the 2021 Global Media and Information Literacy Week. Thank you.
Mr. Ambrose, thank you so much for your remarks. And more importantly, thank you very much, on behalf of UNESCO, to SIDA and our Swedish partners who offer such strong support to UNESCO in this particular area. And I want to highlight some of the points that you made, that are so important, that really media and information literacy is one of those life and death skills and competences that we have to have right now to protect democracy and fundamental freedoms. Without it, we cannot really take advantage of the digital spaces effectively, and which drive innovation and our ability to really thrive in a society that has become more and more digital. So thank you very much for these important remarks, and I'd like now to introduce ICESCO's Ms. Raim Girardi, and say that UNESCO, works very closely and wishes to provide support and expertise to ICESCO in its work to develop educational policies in the field of media and information literacy, so that we can all enjoy an inclusive and quality education throughout life. So please, Madame Girardi, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you for your introduction. Good morning, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, and greetings from the ICESCO headquarters in Rabat, Kingdom of Morocco. It is a pleasure and an honor for me to participate today on behalf of His Excellency, the ICESCO Director General, Dr. Salim Al-Malik, and to convey to you His Excellency's wishes for success to this important online feature conference. As we all know, this year marks the celebration of the 10-year anniversary for the Global Media and Information Literacy Week, which had its origin in 2011 during the first international conference on MIL and intercultural dialogue, which was held in Fez, Morocco, under the auspices of His Majesty King Mohammed VI, with both UNESCO and ICESCO as lead partners. It has been 10 years since the Fez Declaration on MIL was proclaimed to call on international development partners to dedicate a week to highlight to all stakeholders the value of promoting and pursuing MIL throughout the world. Later on, in 2019, at the 40th session of UNESCO General Conference, the UNESCO's 193 member states underlined the importance of MIL by proclaiming the Global MIL Week to be held annually on 24 to 31st October. Last year, on March 25, 2021, the United Nations General Assembly also endorsed the proclamation of the Global MIL Week on the UN International Calendar. Ladies and gentlemen, both in our common global and integrated counterterrorism strategies, and more recently during the COVID-19 pandemic, we have all experienced how life-threatening rumors, fake news, and contradictory or confusing information can be. We have all witnessed firsthand how hateful expressions affect negatively our identities, our peace, our solidarity, and our sustainable development worldwide. Hence, we at ICESCO believe that resources should be mobilized for a real impact on MIL, as MIL should be positioned among the priorities of the international agenda in the post-pandemic world. MIL must indeed be expanded because it contributes to the public good. It is very important to develop and implement policies, programs, action plans, and strategies related to the promotion of MIL. It is also urgent to counter hate speech and to increase awareness and capacity for prevention and resilience to disinformation and misinformation. Together with the technical digital skills, we need to equip citizens worldwide with competencies to counter potentially harmful content through formal non-formal, and informal education. We should also encourage diversity and dialogue as an imperative public matter that the world should promote urgently. It is also necessary to empower individuals and societies by enhancing their capacities in the communication and information field, especially with the multiplication of digital platforms. Besides, a multi-stakeholder cooperation around MIL should include both the traditional and the new actors, from private, public, and civil society sectors in health, media, education, culture, and you name it. Ladies and gentlemen, in its continued effort to promote the Global MIL Week, ICESCO remains dedicated to sustaining MIL development and to advancing both good practices in MIL and MIL research and knowledge. ICESCO will make every effort to develop in its 54 member states the digital skills, but also the ethical values related to MIL, from early childhood for early starters and university level for youth to late starters as the elderly, as we believe that no one should be left behind in MIL. We will continue to do so through all levels and types of education, while giving particular importance to women and girls, especially that ICESCO is celebrating this year the ICESCO Year for Women under the high patronage of His Majesty King Mohammed VI. ICESCO will also help prevent and protect learners from the dangers of the internet, like hate speech and the misuse of personal data by private companies, by launching the ICESCO MIL Awards, recognizing excellence and leadership in 6 sectors, namely education, research, policy, advocacy, media and communication, and information, as well as by co-sponsoring digital platforms, media, and libraries, as well as local and regional relevant workshops and trainings. I thank you for your attention, and I convey to you once again the wishes of His Excellency Dr. Salim Al-Malik, Director General of ICESCO, of full success for this international conference organized by our highly valued partner, UNESCO. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Jirani. You know, this is a really great news that you give us, that ICESCO will be creating MIL awards to, you know, really foster and catalyze and nurture good actions in this area. You know, that ICESCO has always been a, you know, tremendously good partner, and, you know, has fantastic insights in this area. You know, for the 10 years since MIL declaration was made, you know, you've been working together, you know, with you and building experience against, you know, this online harms together in terms of education. So please, you know, accept our appreciation, and please transmit our thanks also to your Director General. Very kind of you to participate on his behalf. Thank you.
My pleasure.
So, thank you. So UNESCO also looks to strengthen cooperation with Arab states in order to promote the culture of media and information literacy in that region. So collaborating with the Arab League to identify synergies and potential partnerships in media and information literacy is really essential for us. So on that, you know, let me invite Ms. Samia Bibars, Minister Plenipotentiary and the Director of Monitoring Crisis Management Department in the Arab League. So please, the floor is yours, Madam.
Good morning, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Greetings from the Arab League's premises here in Cairo, Egypt. It is a great opportunity for me and an honor for me to be here speaking on behalf of His Excellency, Mr. Ahmed Abul Ghait, the Secretary General of the League of Arab States. And he is actually conveying his best regards and his warmest regards to this session, wishing this session all success. First of all, let me express my gratitude to the UNESCO giving me this opportunity to participate in a very important gathering and a very unique gathering like this session today. I would like to start my remarks by highlighting mainly the urgency of international and regional cooperation in terms of the promotion of MIL, of media and information literacy. And this is, from my point of view, I think it is related, or it is due to different and numerous factors and reasons. First of all, the world has been witnessing in the recent years rising threats of violent radicalization and terrorism, and even though increasing trends of intolerance, xenophobia, discrimination, even though rising threats and challenges of hate speech and speech of violence, all these factors, or all these issues or challenges has been posing, lots of challenges to all countries in the world. Even though we are, the researchers have been claiming that there is a very strong linkage between the usage of digital media, and especially the social media, and the rising trends of radicalization, and especially the recruitment of youth through the social media by the terrorist groups. This is also a very important factor which calls upon the urgency of international and regional cooperation in terms of promotion of media and information literacy. Finally, the wave of misinformation and disinformation which was associated with the COVID-19 pandemic in the last 2 years has also posed lots of challenges and threats which we need to combat, and which we need to face by promoting and integrating the media and information literacy in the education. And it's not only limited to the formal education, but it's also to non-formal education. Let me move to the media and information literacy on the Arab Beach agenda. As a matter of fact, the media and information literacy is of great priority on the Arab Beach agenda, and it is just to highlight that the Arab Media Code of Honor, which was adopted by the Council of Arab Information Ministers in 2019, has been underlining the importance of promoting the MIL for everyone, especially the youth. Even though the Arab League has carried out various activities in the recent time, such as organizing conferences, seminars, and even though workshops in terms of MIL and the promotion of MIL. Let me move now to the recommendations which I might submit to this important session and this important platform. One of the recommendations I might start with, it is the promotion of the usage of the MIL measurements. And we need to set global standards or guidelines for the usage of internet, just to build the resilience for the youth in terms of usage, or when they have a certain access on the digital media, and especially the social media. Second recommendation is supporting the researches which are carried out in the field of MIL, and especially the researches carried by, professional centers or professional institutes in the field of media, and especially media and information literacy. The second recommendation, or the third actually recommendation is when we are thinking of promoting the MIL, we have to bear in consideration the respect of human rights, the freedom of expression, the freedom of opinion as well. I think also we need, we should put or give priority to youth in the field of the promotion of media and information literacy. We have to focus on the youth because this is the most targeted group, especially by the radical groups or by the terrorist groups through the social media. So we need to give them a priority, the youth in this in the field of MIL. Of course, we need also to mobilize resources. We need necessary resources, and I seize the opportunity. I mean, being in or attending this platform to urge the governments and even though the private sector to submit donations to mobilize resources for the promotion of MIL, especially the private sector, and even though the governments and the member states in the UNESCO, to urge them to mobilize necessary resources for promotion of MIL and maybe donations. Finally, I might conclude with two other recommendations. One of the main recommendations is just calling upon the UNESCO to expand and to strengthen its partnership with regional organizations and maybe the Arab League. And maybe this is a very good opportunity for the Arab League to propose organizing maybe a joint workshop with the UNESCO in terms of promotion of MIL and to train the youth in the Arab region to use the measurements of MIL through the experts of the UNESCO. And finally, in line with the UNESCO, we might at the Arab League explore the possibility, and we can explore the possibility, I might study the possibility of organizing an annual regional or let's say Arab MIL week, and to mobilize stakeholders in the Arab region to celebrate this week. And we might explore the possibility to submit such an issue to the to the Council of the Arab Ministers of Information in their upcoming session. Thank you for your kind attention, and thank you, Mrs. Moderator.
Thank you, Ms. Bibars. I mean, this is also, great. We absolutely accept the call, to collaborate very closely with the Arab League. You've been, excellent partners to UNESCO as well, and we appreciate the recommendations you made, which are, absolutely in line with what we ourselves, believe in, that we really need to prioritize youth, that we really need to set standards for the internet that protect human rights and ensure that everybody has a digital space that is, effective, welcoming, safe, and encouraging rather than destructive, as some of that we've seen lately. And that we support research in this area as well as as action for education. So thank you for your good remarks. Appreciate it, and I absolutely hope to see that Arab Meal Week coming about. So please do explore it indeed, like as you said that you would may wish to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you for Egypt.
Thank you. So now let me turn to Norway, which is one of the pioneer countries in the field of media and information literacy, which has witnessed by a large number of initiatives in this field, multitude of activities, and the level of awareness on the importance in media and information literacy reflected in the national education system and already through curricula. So from UNESCO, we aim to really strengthen our collaboration with Norway in order to learn from the country's experience. So in that light, let me welcome Ms. Vera Hellström, who is Senior Advisor in the Norwegian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So please, the floor is yours, Madam. Madam Hellström? Can you hear us? I think, I think she was disconnected. Can you hear us, Madam? No, I think she's still online. You're muted. Okay. So let's go to the other speaker, and then we'll come back to Madame Hellström, so that we can proceed while she reconnects, hopefully. So since it's really important to bring into the debate a social network platform to provide a very concrete perspective on the social impact and the importance of media and information literacy in the digital sphere, I'm happy to welcome Mr. Matt Cook, who is the head of Google's News Lab. So please, Mr. Cook, the floor is yours. Hello? Hello? Mr. Cook, are you online? Oh, Ms. Hellstrom? Ms. Hellstrom, are you back? Are you online? So, yeah, so please do take the floor. Welcome and unmute yourself, please. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, my connection was lost for a minute there. Good morning, everyone. It's an honor for me to be part of this distinguished panel and to speak on behalf of Norway on the importance of media and information literacy. Norway is a strong supporter of UNESCO's work on information and communication, as well as on education. Since its beginning, we have been one of the main donors of the multi-donor program on freedom of expression and the safety of journalists, which includes efforts to empower societies through media and information literacy. Freedom of expression, including freedom of information and media freedom, is an important priority for Norway in our international work to protect human rights. We strongly believe in freedom of expression as a cornerstone of a vibrant democracy where all members of society can participate. In this regard, MIL has become more important than ever. In the Norwegian Constitution, freedom of expression is based on three different but equally important considerations. First of all, the seeking of truth. Secondly, the promotion of democracy. And finally, the individual's freedom to share and receive and form his or her opinions. Our possibility to access and share information and opinions has been hugely increased by the rapid development of digital tools and online communication platforms. Digital access is, of course, still a challenge for all, digital access for all. But all over the world, we see that digitalization is empowering more and more people to take part in public life. The seeking of truth, however, has in some ways become more difficult. The sheer scale of available information online can make it hard to navigate. And the business models and algorithms of digital and social media platforms are too often undermining the right to freedom of expression and information by emphasizing information that is false or misleading and preventing equal access to reliable information. Different state and non-state actors take advantage of the design of the digital platforms, driven by commercial, ideological, or political motives. Ensuring that reliable ensuring that reliable information is actually available and accessible must go hand in hand with strengthening the media and information literacy of the public. Although nation states have an obligation to protect human rights, including protecting the right to access to information, businesses also have a responsibility to respect human rights and address negative impacts of their operations. The big tech companies need to take a greater responsibility to protect and promote human rights online, including freedom of expression and information. And Norway supports the EU initiative to put in place a new regulatory framework that will provide more transparency and control of the social media platforms. And we want to contribute to international cooperation between governments, tech companies, civil society, and independent media on mapping and countering disinformation and to ensure a digital environment that is safe for all. In the new digital media landscape, professional edited journalism is an increasingly important source of reliable information and news. It is crucial to ensure media freedom and media diversity across the globe. A wide range of independent and professional media channels, including local community media, is important to ensure that all groups in society have the opportunity to gain insight into and influence matters of public interest. Of course, independent news media also have a responsibility to separate clearly commercial content from editorial content on their digital platforms. Closer cooperation between social media companies and independent news and fact-checking services is needed to ensure that the public has access to reliable news and information. This emphasis on media freedom and media diversity, as well as global efforts to combat disinformation and providing access to reliable information, must go hand in hand with strengthening people's awareness of how and why false and misleading information is produced and spread online as well as offline. The negative effects of spreading disinformation, propaganda, hate speech, where to find alternative sources of information, the role of independent media, but also, and again, the value of seeking the truth through an open and free exchange of knowledge, ideas, and opinions in a society. I was surprised when checking the latest report from PISA on developing literacy skills in a digital world. It showed that in OECD countries, less than half of 15-year-olds were able to distinguish facts from opinions in online sources. Although the school environment is where most students have access to computer and digital platforms, many do not acquire sufficient know-how at school on how to, for example, decide whether to trust information from the internet or how to detect whether information is subjective or biased. As I happen to have a 15-year-old son myself, I was eager to know more about a young person's own reflections on this, so I asked him about accessing information online and navigating. He confirmed that the amount of information online makes it difficult to navigate between facts, disinformation, and opinions. He was aware, though, of the need to check the sources of online information and how to consider the credibility of sources. However, I was surprised to learn that his trust in independent media sources was low. He rather put his trust in information from established interest groups, organizations, as well as online encyclopedia and public information. Having worked in the media myself, I was rather disappointed by his lack of trust in the media, of course, knowing that young people mostly use social media as their main source of news, and how search engines and social media platforms use algorithms to select what is visible. I should perhaps not be that surprised. But this PISA study is just one example of how research and knowledge that is important to develop effective national strategies on MIL, as well as relevant education material, be it for parents, teachers, and other groups in society. Through UNESCO and the Multi-Donor Programme on Freedom of Expression and the Safety of Journalists, we are proud to have supported the development of national MIL policies and strategies in countries like Nigeria, Kenya, Mongolia, Palestine. Last year, 390 teachers and educators improved their capacity to adapt and apply MIL, and 73 youth organizations were empowered to integrate MIL in their programs. This important work on developing curriculum for educators and learners and training educators and empower young people needs to be supported by more donors. And the integration of MIL in education programs and curriculum more generally is also highly relevant. UNESCO has an important mandate to strengthen education systems worldwide. Integrating results and experiences from projects supported under the MDP will support goals related to fostering knowledge sharing and skills development in the digital age, as well as goals related to global citizenship education and the development of digital competencies for teachers and students. We are proud to support UNESCO on its work on education, including the promotion of quality teaching and learning. The UNESCO MIL Alliance is likewise a great initiative to support international cooperation between organizations to ensure access for all citizens to media and information competencies. I noticed that only 2 Norwegian organizations are part of the MIL Alliance, and we clearly have to make this more known at home. Since last year, though, also in Norway, a national network for MIL consisting of 25 organizations and businesses, including Facebook Norway, has been working to exchange knowledge and coordinate efforts to increase MIL among different groups in the population. To come to a conclusion, we agree on the challenges and the need to provide more resources for MIL. I would like to stress, like some of the other panelists, the importance of applying a human rights-based approach to MIL. Strengthening media and information literacy is about protecting the right to freedom of expression and freedom of information, which are fundamental to safeguard other human rights and fundamental to democratic and sustainable development. A rights-based approach needs to take in consideration also the digital gender gaps and to empower women, girls, and vulnerable groups. Ensuring digital access and digital skills is a global challenge that requires global cooperation, including the sharing of knowledge and resources and development of national policies. The COVID-19 pandemic, as mentioned by several of the panelists, and the related infodemic has been a wake-up call for many of us, and we must build on this momentum to invest more in education for global citizenship, development of digital skills, and access to information, including through the support for a diversity of independent media. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hallström. We really appreciate your perspective. And let me just say that before being the Director for Partnerships in the Communication and Information Sector of UNESCO, I was Director of UNESCO Beijing office working with Mongolia, where I had the real pleasure of, the support you provided in order to really extend media and information literacy, through the education systems of Mongolia, which, I truly appreciate very much. As your case, in your case, you already know young people, have the need for this kind of resource, and it's for us a great pleasure to be working with partners that really enshrine the respect for human rights as well, as a priority in driving this kind of knowledge, through education systems and through different types of approaches. So thank you very much, for your support. On personal behalf, as the UNESCO person working in Mongolia, and and now communication information sector here. Thank you. And now we still don't see Mr. Cook from Google's News Lab online, so we're still, trying to connect him somehow. He got disconnected and have been unable to reconnect. So let's, skip him for now. Hopefully he can join. But so let me, thank Japan for being one of the donors to the UNESCO Media and Information Literacy work in Africa, which is so important, and Africa is a UNESCO priority as well. So there are many possibilities to expand and strengthen media and information literacy throughout that particular region, and we certainly, have appreciated and hope to continue engaging with Japan in that. So let me ask Mr. Jun Sakamoto, who is a professor of lifelong learning and career studies, but who is speaking here on the behalf of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Japan. So the floor is yours, sir. Thank you.
Can I share my PowerPoint? Okay. Can you see my PowerPoint?
We can see fine. Thank you so much.
Okay. Good morning and good afternoon to all the ladies and gentlemen from around the world. who have joined this meeting today. My name is Jun Sakamoto. I'm a professor at Hosei University in Japan, and I'm in charge of the UNESCO's Media and Information Literacy and Intercultural Dialogue, or MELIT program. Today, I'd like to talk to you about what we are doing and what we are planning to do. First, I would like to explain about Japan's effort. Japan provides educational support on a bilateral basis, mainly to developed countries. In addition, Japan emphasizes support for the improving literacy in the information field. We also support the implementation of MIR project in developed countries through UNESCO. I would like to introduce our project. It is Media and Information Literacy for Youth Civic Engagement Program. This project aims to stimulate youth civic engagement by empowering youth with media and information literacy. There are two main components of the project. The first is to enable youth to acquire MIR competencies in their normal day-to-day use of social media and the internet in general, and to engage actively as peer educators through the MIR cliques. The second is to strengthen the capacity of youth-led organizations to integrate MIR in their daily operations, policies, and strategies. Youth and youth-led organizations in target countries will have enhanced knowledge and capacities on MIR, and thus they will be involved in countering disinformation and hate speech online, preventing violent extremism, promoting dialogue and peace. And the output will include guidelines for youth organizations to integrate MIR in their operations. Over 2,000 youth trained through online and offline means. Over 3,000 youth engaged in MIR and improved debating skills, 500 micro-learning graphics. Next, I would like to explain Hosei University's commitment to the MIR project. Hosei University became a member of UNESCO's MELIT network in 2014. The library and training course I belong to is in charge of the UNESCO MIR program. Hosei University will ensure local coordination and assist with identifying local youth-led organizations. We will contribute to guideline micro-learning content development, particularly relating to intercultural dialogue. We will also assist in the pre-workshop, basic MIR assessment, and serve as a venue for a workshop in Japan. I would like to introduce the MIR movement in Japan briefly. First, a library an important provider of media and information literacy. In 2019, the School Library Division of the Japan Library Association held a meeting with the executive director of Japanese fact-checking organization. This was a very symbolic event that changed the trend in the library world from information literacy to media and information literacy. Second, the Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications is making a new literacy education plan outside of school. Third, newspaper participating in the news in education program, promoting media literacy education. Next, I would like to introduce the features of Hosei University's original program, the World Press Freedom Day Forum. We need to teach young people about the role of journalists in democracy. World Press Freedom Day is an important day for dialogue among youth, citizens, and journalists. First, it is hosted by a library training course. Secondly, it is co-sponsored by the Japan Congress of Journalists, which is the largest journalist organization in Japan. We are trying to connect UNESCO's MIR program with Japanese journalists in Japan. Third, students and citizens can participate and interact with journalists. Fourth, we have been collaborating with Reporters Without Borders since 2019. And we are organizing a youth MIR teaching event as part of the project. Students from several universities participated in the event and held an online discussion. Another initiative is to hold the Japan-Korea MIR Forum since last year. We also working with the Philippine Association for Media and Information Literacy. They are the Asia Pacific chapter of the Global MIR Alliance. This year, we participate as speakers in the World Press Freedom Day webinar held in May, and in the MIR training for teachers held in August. Finally, I would like to introduce our cross-cultural exchange and collaboration project using media in elementary and secondary schools and universities. The photo on the left shows Vietnamese and Japanese university students working together to create digital storytelling works. The photo on the right shows Cambodian and Japanese students working together. Cross-cultural collaboration is the foundation for intercultural dialogue. A university student can actually go to the foreign countries to interact with them, but elementary school children cannot. In 2016, elementary school children who experienced the Great East Japan earthquake sent a video message to elementary school children who experienced the Great Nepal earthquake in 2015 and received a video message reply. You can watch the full story on YouTube. The last point I want to make is that I have high hopes for young people for creating a sustainable world. In order to achieve this goal, it is very important not only to support them, but also to create opportunities for intercultural exchange and dialogue. And the power and the energy derived from them will bring peace to the world. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Sakamoto-san. Arigatou gozaimashita. And thank you. This was, I particularly enjoyed the video and the cultural exchange that happened and the exchange of ideas between the young people from Japan and from Nepal. There's a brilliant example of what we can achieve together. And indeed, enabling young people to acquire, media and information literacy skills, and, including through, for example, promoting micro-learning curriculum and resources. It's really a great, great way of ensuring that many, people are reached, and that we have effective action in this regard. So thank you very much, for what Jose University does, and with what and for sharing with us what Japan is doing. It's certainly appreciate that. So let's see if we have had the opportunity to have Mr. Cook online. I don't think he was able to rejoin, so that is, quite unfortunate. It's a pity that we're not going to hear from Google Labs as we would like to, Google News as we would expect it. Which gives us a bit more time, perhaps, to discuss among ourselves and to hear from the audience if we have any questions. Alton, are you online? Alton Grizzle, could you turn your camera on, please? And
yes.
Yes. So hi, Alton. Do we have questions from the audience, perhaps? That we could pose to our great panelists.
No questions coming in.
Okay, so for now, okay, thank you very much. Let me ask you, after we've seen the various presentations, and it's fantastic that we were represented by, in our panel by people, panelists from, the many regions of the world, so we have perspectives from, from Arab states, from Asia Pacific, from Europe, from many different places, and can we, identify, could you please, do a tour de table and identify, in your view, what is the most unique, characteristic of the issues of disinformation and hate speech in your region, and what is the most important action that we can take? Is it different from what we see in other regions, or is it similar? So let's, who would like to go first, perhaps? Can I ask, Ms. Bibar, please, floor is yours. You're mute, yeah.
Thank you, Mrs. Moderator. Yes, of course, it's different from one region to another. For instance, in the Arab region, we are facing lots of challenges in the recent years, and especially, I've been mentioning these rising threats of violent radicalization in the Arab region. And I think, as I've been mentioning, that there is a very strong relationship between the access of the accessing of the information online, and especially the social media, and the recruitment of youth in terms of terrorism and violent radicalization. This is, I think, it is something unique. I mean, it's more or less related to the Arab region itself, because we do have some terrorist groups like Daesh, and this is the one of the very popular terrorist group in Iraq, and even though in Syria, and they use, I mean, the verses of the Holy Book to recruit the youth to be integrated and to be part of the terrorist group. So this is again the misuse of the verses of the Holy Book, and this is more or less related to the Arab region or the Islamic region, generally speaking. So I think this is more or less related to our region, and it's different from other regions.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. This is really important. Recently, one of our member states actually, mentioned something very similar to what you just said. He said, the representative we were talking to just said, media and information literacy is not about education. It's about national security, because, essentially what we're seeing is, a tremendous breakage of social contracts and of radicalization and imposed towards polarization and fragmentation of societies. So it's no longer just an education issue. We need to see it with that kind of serious understanding of the impacts on democracy, on the functioning of societies, and so on and so forth. So this is, what you said is incredibly important, and we certainly appreciate the viewpoint. Is it different in other regions? What is the difference you see? Please, so the floor is yours, madam.
Yes, for ICESCO, and as far as the member states are concerned, our 54 member states in the Islamic world, I think the main problem is the radicalization of youth, men and women, and the recruitment of terrorists online. And I have talked in my brief presentation about how MIL should be an integrated part of the global counterterrorism strategies worldwide. And I also talked about how all the different stakeholders should work on this, because it's not a one-man show. It takes a village to succeed in this mission, and it should be a continuous and collaborative effort, because as you mentioned, it's a matter of security in all the region and worldwide.
Oh, thank you. Yes, we've seen it, how serious it is, and how much, we always heard, that the pen is mightier than the sword. That's a saying, that the word is more powerful than any, arms and that you could have, and that's nothing is as true as that, as as the word of disinformation. It's incredibly powerful and capable of really creating tremendous upheaval. It must be treated with this the seriousness that it has. So thank you for your perspective from the Arab world, from the Islamic world. We certainly appreciate it. Can we hear from Europe? What would be, the differences or any unique characteristics, from there? Please, Mr. Ambrose, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ms. Oliveira. Like I think many panelists has been touching up on this as a very complex challenge. You talk about wicked problems that have no easy solutions. This is certainly a wicked challenge, and there's no easy solution. And I think we need to think both in short term and in long term. And I think certainly in my country, in the short term, we see, I think we're losing important voices on the social media because of hatred and perhaps even threats. And so that is I think a big problem if the voices of reason cannot bear to be a part of these platforms any longer, then the voice of the others is growing even stronger. So that is one of the short-term challenges, but I think that the long-term challenge that we need to focus on is the loss of trust. The loss of trust in public agencies, the loss of trust in society as a whole. I think certainly we've seen a decline in trust in recent years, and if this continues, it's going to be a very difficult situation to handle in many parts of the world, I think.
Thank you very much. You know, I think I will definitely have to pay you royalties because I'll be quoting this phrase that you just said, you know, for a long time. If the voices of reason are chased away by, you know, the threats and the harassment and you know, and the harms that they suffer online, all we are going to be left with is the voices of unreason, and which will increase the problem, you know, you know, and you know, it needs to be addressed. So, you know, the issue you just mentioned, the importance of actually protecting the voices of reason while we are, you know, combating the misinformation as well, you know, it's tremendously important. So, Madame Haustron, you had, you know, as a journalist, you know, with experience in the media, you know, certainly, you know, would like to hear from you now. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me add a few points. So in Norway, the Norwegian Media Authority every second year carries out a survey to map the public's media and information literacy, and this includes, you know, awareness around algorithms, fake news, commercial news content, online personal security, and trust in the media. And the most recent report showed that only 4 out of 10 respondents understood the concept of algorithms and content marketing. And among young people, young adults and seniors, they understood to a lesser degree these concepts. So I think, you know, again, the basics of the need to strengthen MIL is very valid. Also in Norway, we need to develop learning resources that can be used in schools and other parts of the society. And also the issue on discrimination and spreading hate speech online is definitely a big concern. We see more and more of that, and I think both among young people in schools, but also otherwise in society, we really have to, you know, teach people about the value of democracy and the respect for human rights. And also, of course, improve people's digital skills and how to take care of their own safety online is important. And perhaps as a third point, and I would like to reiterate what Ms. Biebers was talking about, putting in place global standards for the use of the internet. You know, as I said, we are supporting the EU initiative to put in place a new regulatory framework for the big tech. But this needs to be wider, of course. We need international cooperation, and we need to find a way to put in place some standards that can ensure that human rights are safeguarded online to a much bigger extent than what they are today. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. This is really important. And we, you know, and we can start to see some of the differences, you know, perhaps, you know, in the way and the commonalities as well as in the way that, you know, disinformation, misinformation, hate speech act in different parts of the world. You know, in some places, you know, you see a lot more radicalization of young people and the use of religious messages, you know, and the misuse of religious messages as well, you know, to address, to spread this harm. In other places, you know, you see more about discrimination and polarization, you know, and you know, so you know, the attacks on particular, you know, social groups, you know, racism and you know, xenophobia. You know, you see that, you know, tremendous amount of that, you know, going on as well. And so, you know, this is, you know, there are different tools perhaps, you know, that we need to fine tune and organize around the framework that we have. Mr. Cook was able to join us. So, well, how lucky of you, you know, of us, you know. So let me, you know, interrupt this for a minute. But well, actually, let me just give the floor to Sakamoto-san, perhaps, you know, if you would like to say something about, you know, what are the differences in the Asia Pacific. And then Mr. Cook, you know, welcome. I would like to hear from you, but we are just finalizing a round of questions to the previous speaker. So if you just give us, you know, a couple minutes, Mr. Sakamoto, do you please, you know, what is the difference in the Asia Pacific region?
Yeah, in Asia, different languages make it difficult to interact and collaborate. That's why I think intercultural exchange and dialogue is very important. So differences in the historical view is also a big problem. I think the Japan Korea ML Forum that is started last year is an important challenge. I think that's all.
No, thank you very much. That's a very important perspective. So now let's turn to to Mr. Cook. Who we're so grateful that you could join us. It's really important for us to bring this debate, the social network in this debate, because you really are the ones who know the most about the functionings of the internet, the potential impacts and importance of media and information literacy, and what can actually be done, and from your side, so please, the floor is yours, and we'll definitely welcome you to share your perspective.
Well, good morning from London. Apologies for being late as well. I think I'll blame two things. One, the CEST versus GMT BST. And secondly, the London Underground didn't help either. So apologies, and sincere apologies. I was obviously mistaken with the timing. I'd love to just start, and I'm happy to walk through a couple of the examples if we have time. I'm conscious I've joined late, so I'm very conscious of that. But I think the first thing I'd say is, whilst navigating the uncertainty and the challenges of this last 18 months, it's been really clear to me as an individual, but also to us as an organization, that it's more important than ever for people to access accurate information and sort facts from fiction. When it comes to media literacy and the effort to combat all forms of mis and disinformation, there are multiple efforts and initiatives across Google and YouTube. And I can walk through a couple of those to give you some more details. For consumers, we have a couple of programs called Be Internet Legends and Be Internet Citizens, where we provide digital skills to help school children and teenagers verify and fact check. Also through our philanthropic arm, the google.org, we provided 3.2 million euro in funding since 2018 to programs and external experts, because we know this is something that can't be done alone by one organization. It's a ecosystem-wide effort. So examples of that include Newswise, Student View, and ViteClick. I think the team that I lead from London is a global team that focuses on three key challenges, and we work closely with the news industry because we think they have a significant role to play here as well, of course. One of those is to elevate and strengthen quality journalism, not just on Google and YouTube, but right across the web. And so we work in a number of ways to support journalists and fact checkers and media literacy and misinformation experts, thinking about the digital tools and training that is available for them as practitioners, and supporting them through technological innovation is a key aspect of the team that I lead. My team is the News Lab, and we are based we have a presence in more than 15 countries and a training presence in more than 70 countries. And that does have a laser focus on training, as I said, journalists and publishers and media literacy experts, but also we've done a lot to support external efforts which will reach consumers as well. A couple of examples. One is around election times, and we've worked with multiple organizations. One of the first we did was in 2017, was around the French presidential election. And there we worked with around 30 different local and national newsrooms to fact check and share debunked information so they can disseminate that to their audiences in ways that they know best. We've seen that more recently in places like Argentina, Brazil, and a recent effort in Germany with Fact and Check 21. Specifically, when it comes to media literacy, though, the biggest news we had this year was our announcement with the European University Institute, the Calouste Gulbenkian Foundation, and the European Digital Media Observatory. And that was a 25 million euro 5-year commitment to provide funding to help media literacy experts across the European Union, EFTA, and the United Kingdom, for them to receive funding and to apply for funding to help them think of new projects that will reach underrepresented communities, help them reach rural and urban audiences, and help them provide media literacy training to young and older citizens. We want to do that because, one, we feel like the challenge of misinformation is almost like a double-sided coin. You have misinformation and media literacy as a potential way to combat that, in addition to the tools and policies that we have, of course. But that was something we announced in March, and I'm happy to say that next week the first funding window will open. Google has no role in selecting the grantees. That's all done by an independent expert jury, not us. So that was something we've done very specifically with media literacy in mind here in Europe. And then my final example is around, of course, the current pandemic. And this year in January, we launched an open call, which was a global call for us to support fact checkers, publishers, and media literacy experts to think about how they can provide media literacy and fact checks and debunks around the COVID-19 vaccine itself. And so around 300 ideas were submitted to, again, an independent panel. They whittled that down to 11 ideas. And I'll just finish by giving you 3 examples, which give you a sense of the breadth of ideas and innovations coming from that. One was from Africa Check, which received funds to enable an interactive radio drama to combat vaccine misinformation across Nigeria and Senegal. Another was by Stuff in New Zealand, which was to support the correction of falsehoods amongst the Maori and Pacific Islander population in that region. And then the final one, which stood out for me, was an audio project for wet market merchants in Indonesia. So a real range of different projects and ideas that have come through, and it shows that there is a real appetite for more work and more support for media literacy right around the world, not just here in Europe, where we have, as I said, made this announcement around the fund.
Okay, sorry, I forgot to unmute. So thank you very much, for your remarks. It's really great concrete examples that from which we see actions that were taken, but to do the 2 things that you mentioned in the beginning, to elevate quality journalism, which is absolutely essential. And other of our speakers have highlighted the importance of that. Here I am giving Mr. Ambrose again. I owe you an euro of royalty again. So let me just again mention the phrase that he said. When the voices of reason, and quality journalism is certainly a voice of reason, are chased away from platforms. What remains is essentially disinformation, and misinformation. So it's really important that we're able to, elevate quality journalism indeed. And the other thing, the examples and projects that you've mentioned on and concrete initiatives and the diversity of initiatives both in Europe and other regions of the world, to combat misinformation and disinformation, particularly around the anti-vax elements. So thank you for those examples. It's really, really important. Ms. Bibars, you would like to say something, please? Go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you, Mrs. Moderator. It's only just 2 points I need to outline and I need to mention. Actually, the first, as a matter of fact, the first point, which is it's unique in the Arab region and even in the Islamic region, that we are witnessing in the recent years. I mean, rising threats and rising trends of hate speech against Islam specifically, and even though against the Arab Islamic culture. This is one point. Another point I need to mention is that the MIL as a concept has been integrated in the school curriculums in some Arab countries, but some of them hasn't yet integrated the MIL concept in their curriculum. So this might be, a good opportunity to call upon the Arab countries, and especially the ministries of education in the Arab region, to start integrating the MIL in their curriculum in schools. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. And I really appreciated your sharing your thoughts, because quite a lot of recommendations and ideas that came out of your intervention. So we certainly compiled all of those and put that on the list of things that we need to do. And speaking of that, when you mentioned the issues of integration, the lack of integration of MIL curriculum yet, in several countries, particularly as this is a relatively new concept to begin with. What are some of the initiatives in your views? We have a last round, so we have like 30 seconds to throw in some ideas, perhaps on what would be some actions that we can do in countries that are not yet incorporating new curriculum, and how can we engage globally in this collaboration across all countries to really draw out all the resources that we can, technical resources, financial resources, ideas and capacities in the fight, to strengthen media and information literacy skills and competences around the world. So one last idea from each of you that would like to jump in, please. Anyone? So let me, actually say, we have my co-director, Guy Berger, here online, with us. Guy, are you there? Just say hello. And
yes, greetings, everybody. I'm going to moderate a session which is starting in 2 minutes' time. So I was listening to this session, extremely interesting, and I really appreciate all the sentiments about taking this MIL seriously at the policy and the strategy level and integrating it practically, as the speakers have been saying.
Yes. So thank you very much for that. Any final ideas, if anybody would like to share, Mr. Ambrose and Ms. Biebers, please.
Well, thank you very much. Just very briefly, I just reacted to the fact that Mr. Sakamoto mentioned in his remarks the role of libraries, and I'd just like to highlight, the role of libraries, librarians, information specialists, perhaps archive and archivists as well, that exist, all over the world, and I believe can be a potential resource in combating misinformation and disinformation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is a great idea. And let me just say that the International Federation of Libraries and Archives, IFLA, is a very strong collaborator of UNESCO. We've been working together for many, many years, and we are in the process of developing some ideas and strategies for work together, including in this particular area. So, thank you very much. We'll certainly put that into the action ideas. Ms. Biebers, you had asked for the floor, so please.
Yeah, thank you, Mrs. Moderator. It's only one point I need to mention regarding how to urge the Arab member states, for instance, who haven't yet integrated the MIL in their curriculum or the school curriculums. I think I might propose that we need to have intensive cooperation with the UNESCO, just to help the Arab member states to get acquainted with the concept MIL, because just as a matter of fact, we need to make a kind of marketing for this concept, for the concept of MIL. So we need to work constantly and intensively with the UNESCO, and that's why I propose to organize a joint workshop with the UNESCO, giving the opportunity to the Arab member states and especially the youth to participate in such a workshop, so they might have the opportunity to get acquainted with this concept and to acquire the skills of the MIL. And through this intensive cooperation, I think we can promote the MIL concept in the school curriculums, and we can work on this in the upcoming period to urge the Arab member states to integrate MIL in the curriculum. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, and absolutely, let's do it. Let's do it, because the concept certainly needs more awareness raising. We are essentially out of time, so we'll take one more minute, Mr. Cook and Ms. Hellstrom. You literally have 30 seconds each. Then we have to wrap up and say goodbye. Thank you. Please.
Thank you. I'll be very quick. I think one thing which helped in Europe is to provide data point research. What is the demand? We did some research which showed that 1 in 10 European citizens have access to media literacy training, which is obviously demonstrating a big gap. So that could be a way of showing the need.
Thank you. Let's share those data and you know, share this kind of findings, because absolutely they are essential. And Ms. Hellström, the last word is yours then. You know.
Thank you. Just to underline again that we agree, of course, on the need to integrate MIL in education programs. And given that Norway is a big donor globally to education, we provide about $400 million annually to education. So this is really something we need to look further into, how we can strengthen integration of MIL. And I also believe that the development of national policies and strategies is important, and that we need to involve young people in the development of such policies and build, of course, then on research and public and private partnerships. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And with that, let me wrap it up, because the next session is about to start, and express enormous gratitude and appreciation for the thoughts you shared with us, for the ideas and recommendations made, and for the willingness to, you know, not only contribute yourselves, you know, to media and information literacy, but also to advocate for us to continue strengthening and scaling up the efforts around media and information literacy, which are so essential for democracy, for peace, for human rights, and, you know, for civility, you know, and civic participation in our, you know, digital spaces. So thank you so much, and you know, hope to continue this dialogue offline and in other online occasions too. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you.
The way we create and consume information has changed significantly in recent years. Today, more than half of the world's population, including over 70% of all youth globally, are online. But how can we make sure that all information is used for public good? To promote dialogue and respect, support SDGs and democracy, and empower lifelong learners, instead of breeding hate speech, disinformation, fake news, and privacy violations. Media and information literacy is designed to combat these challenges and enable people to better benefit from positive opportunities. It gives individuals the skills to interpret and understand information, to think critically and click wisely, both on and offline. UNESCO has launched the second edition of the MIL curriculum for educators and learners. It provides a comprehensive framework for information, media, and digital competencies, so individuals can spot misinformation and engage positively in society. It's not just a framework, but a foundation to live by. To help make sense of ever-changing information-based influences by becoming media and information literate citizens, we are empowered to make the right choices. Learn more about media and information literacy and how it can support citizens to think critically and click wisely, on and offline. Since 2013, the UNESCO Media and Information Literacy Alliance has brought global communities together, promoting international cooperation to advance media and information literacy for all. Spanning over 100 countries, the Alliance has more than 700 member organisations. Member organisations are committed to advocating for the development of media and information literacy, supporting the articulation of national media and information literacy policies, and collaborating to reduce duplication and fragmentation. driven by UNESCO and partners with support from an international steering committee, regional chapters, youth ambassadors and thematic working groups. The UNESCO Media and Information Literacy Alliance coordinates activities at the global, regional and national levels. The Media and Information Literacy and Intercultural Dialogue University Network is a research arm of the Alliance. Youth are co-leaders in the Alliance network as peer educators through the UNESCO MilClicks initiative. You can access hundreds of learning resources on media and information literacy by following MilClicks social media pages. Join the UNESCO Media and Information Literacy Alliance as an individual or an organisation. Get involved now. Media and information literacy empowers people to think critically about information and use of digital tools. Media and information literacy helps people to make informed choices about how they participate in peace building, equality, freedom of expression, access to information, and sustainable development goals in general. UNESCO supports and champions media and information literacy initiatives across the globe. We do this through actions such as capacity building for various stakeholders, developing curricula for educators and learners to aid the integration of media and information literacy in all levels of education, assisting governments and institutions to formulate national media and information literacy policies and strategies, training journalists to promote media and information literacy to build trust in media, strengthening international cooperation and raising awareness through the UNESCO Media and Information Literacy Alliance, supporting youth organisations to integrate media and information literacy into their policies and operations, and become peer educators online, offering a suite of online media and information literacy courses, including ones for policymakers, undertaking research with the UNESCO Media and Information Literacy and Intercultural Dialogue University Network, organising the annual Global Media and Information Literacy Week. With this holistic approach and rich resources, we can help foster media and information literacy among people and communities across the globe. Here's how you can get involved in UNESCO's media and information literacy initiatives and make a real difference in society. The way we create and consume information has changed significantly in recent years. Today, more than half of the world's population, including over 70% of all youth globally, are online. But how can we make sure that all information is used for public good? To promote dialogue and respect, support SDGs and democracy, and empower lifelong learners, instead of breeding hate speech, disinformation, fake news, and privacy violations. Media and information literacy is designed to combat these challenges and enable people to better benefit from positive opportunities. It gives individuals the skills to interpret and understand information, to think critically and click wisely, both on and offline. UNESCO has launched the second edition of the MIL curriculum for educators and learners. It provides a comprehensive framework for information, media, and digital competencies, so individuals can spot misinformation and engage positively in society. It's not just a framework, but a foundation to live by. To help make sense of ever-changing information-based influences by becoming media and information literate citizens, we are empowered to make the right choices. Learn more about media and information literacy and how it can support citizens to think critically and click wisely, on and offline. Since 2013, the UNESCO Media and Information Literacy Alliance has brought global communities together, promoting international cooperation to advance media and information literacy for all. Spanning over 100 countries, the Alliance has more than 700 member organisations. Member organisations are committed to advocating for the development of media and information literacy, supporting the articulation of national media and information literacy policies, and collaborating to reduce duplication and fragmentation. Driven by UNESCO and partners with support from an international steering committee, regional chapters, youth ambassadors and thematic working groups, the UNESCO Media and Information Literacy Alliance coordinates activities at the global, regional and national levels. The Media and Information Literacy and Intercultural Dialogue University Network is a research arm of the Alliance. Youth are co-leaders in the Alliance network as peer educators through the UNESCO MilClicks initiative. You can access hundreds of learning resources on media and information literacy by following MilClicks social media pages. Join the UNESCO Media and Information Literacy Alliance as an individual or an organisation. Get involved now. Media and information literacy empowers people to think critically about information and use of digital tools. Media and information literacy helps people to make informed choices about how they participate in peace building, equality, freedom of expression, access to information, and sustainable development goals in general. UNESCO supports and champions media and information literacy initiatives across the globe. We do this through actions such as capacity building for various stakeholders, developing curricula for educators and learners to aid the integration of media and information literacy in all levels of education, assisting governments and institutions to formulate national media and information literacy policies and strategies, training journalists to promote media and information literacy to build trust in media, strengthening international cooperation and raising awareness through the UNESCO Media and Information Literacy Alliance, supporting youth organisations to integrate media and information literacy into their policies and operations, and become peer educators online, offering a suite of online media and information literacy courses, including ones for policymakers, undertaking research with the UNESCO Media and Information Literacy and Intercultural Dialogue University Network, organising the annual Global Media and Information Literacy Week. With this holistic approach and rich resources, we can help foster media and information literacy among people and communities across the globe. Here's how you can get involved in UNESCO's media and information literacy initiatives and make a real difference in society. The way we create and consume information has changed significantly in recent years. Today, more than half of the world's population, including over 70% of all youth globally, are online. But how can we make sure that all information is used for public good? To promote dialogue and respect, support SDGs and democracy, and empower lifelong learners, instead of breeding hate speech, disinformation.
Hello, everybody. Bonjour à tous. You are very, very welcome to this important session. And si vous parlez en français, il y a également traduction. Please look at the button at the bottom of your screen for interpretation, and you can hear this in French and English, and you can speak in French and English for our French or English for our speakers. So I am Guy Berger. I'm working at UNESCO, a director in the communications information sector. it's super to have this panel because we have really top people from around the world, and I can't wait to hear what they have to say. Let me just introduce by saying, from the UNESCO point of view, we are looking now at officials and their relationship to media and information literacy. And I would say that for UNESCO, media and information literacy is an umbrella term that covers all the competencies that people need today to engage with communications, including, of course, digital communications. People need to understand how advertising works. They need to understand privacy issues. They need to understand expression issues. They need to understand how to recognize truthful information. They need to know what is suspicious. They need to know about what it means to think before you share content or before you produce content. And this is so important because it's about our common interest. It's about the public good. And as we see today, there are millions of people, unfortunately, who do not have these skills. People who have had the wool pulled over their eyes by communications that have got them to believe, for example, that vaccines are some kind of conspiracy and will inject chips into them or give them diseases. And the problem then is that these people do not take vaccines. And that puts everybody at risk because new virus variants will evolve. And even those who are vaccinated are then put in danger. So we have a real public interest, a public emergency here, that people are being misled, sometimes deliberately, sometimes just out of naivety. But it's because people are not media and information literacy. We do have a solution here, and that is MIL. And so we can smile, and there I'm taking en anglais from an academic called Davina Frau-Meggs, and she has an NGO called SMILE, S-M-I-L-E, SMILE, sourire. So this is something we can do because if you bring MIL to the fore, you can indeed smile because we have a solution there to this kind of problem. Now, everybody knows that the media should play a role in contributing to MIL. So should the internet companies, especially the internet companies, NGOs, civil society, academia. They all have a contribution to make. But we also know states and state officials are duty bearers for the public good. So they have a special obligation and huge potential impact in advancing MIL. Now, I'm going to ask our illustrious panelists here to make a brief statement, and then after that, we'll go into a couple of rounds of questions. So the first speaker I'm going to introduce and then ask to make a short statement is Her Excellency, Minister of Basic Education of South Africa, Angie Motshekga, who has been Minister of Basic Education since 2009. She's a long-standing activist and educationalist, and she is also the chair of the South African National Commission of UNESCO, which is the co-host with UNESCO of this year's Global Media and Information Literacy Week. Please, Minister, give us your short statement about the role of officials like you, your ministry, in terms of fostering these media and information literacy competencies. Over to you, Minister.
No, thank you very much, facilitator. Let me just start off by expressing our humility and appreciation to be given an opportunity to address this platform, and must say, as a country, we'll be taking steps to adopt the UNESCO resource Media and Information Literacy Citizens Think Critically. Likewise, we'll institute this into our curricula, in our programs. We're also working hard to integrate media and information literacy to enhance diverse, appropriate learning programs, inclusive and gender-appropriate responses to the curriculum. As a continent of Africa, we're also working hard to achieve conducive environments for education reforms in our continent. But of immediate importance is the adoption of this digital learning framework program directive, and fully agree with all the points that we have made and all the threats that are brought about by illiteracy in terms of information. As you know that our society depends more on online platforms for learning, for connection and socializing, especially our young people. Even more urgent, we think that we must push for media information literacy in the digital space. And this, we think, it can protect ourselves and the citizens online. And our information regulators must discard archaic policies which they have, which are not very helpful in terms of enabling us to deal with the environment. We think it is about time to remodel the policies on the best international practice. So as South Africa, we implore the international community to redouble its efforts in ensuring an increased investments in the media information industries as pushback against misinformation entrepreneurs. We also think that we must invest and create an agile ecosystem for media and information awareness and have campaigns in a last-ditch effort to create a media literate populace. And we think that these measures and investments will really banish the darkness expounded by the misinformation brought about by these miscreants. Our democracies can only triumph if our people receive and impart information freely. We want a robust media, agile information highway, and the end result, we think, will be a robust citizenry. But as we know, the backbone of a healthy democracy is an informed and empowered citizenry that can access free and independent media, but the correct information at all times. So the mantra of this platform of media and information literacy for all is necessary to uplift our learners, our citizens, our voters, and the rest of the international community. So as a Republic of South Africa, we look forward to the successful outcomes of this conference and information literacy, and including the plenary. And we do commit to ensure that ourselves, our partners, our neighbors, we work together to ensure that indeed we join the international community in creating or in promoting an informed citizenry that can protect itself for all sorts of misinformation, for all the miscreants that are around who are spreading false information. As you say, Chair, especially with the threat of COVID-19, it is a major problem and a major threat to all of us if this is not dealt with immediately. Thank you very much, Program Director, and thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Minister. And I hope, well, we will come back with further questions, but I just think in your, if I was in your shoes, it's quite a challenge because, of course, curricula in the schools are already, they're full, they're packed. And now we have this new problem and this new challenge, and somehow we have to find a smart way to squeeze or mainstream this kind of literacy into everything else that young people at school need to learn. But we have to do it. I mean, it's the cost, as you say, is immense if we don't do it. Let me move to our next speaker then. Very pleased to welcome Dr. Diosdado San Antonio, who is the Undersecretary for Curriculum and Instruction at the Department of Education in the Philippines. Dr. San Antonio, you coordinate an ongoing review of the basic curriculum, and I know you are also trying to ensure that every learner can achieve all-rounded literacy, and I also know that you push for transparency, ethics, and accountability in school governance. So, welcome. Can you give us your short starting remark about Philippines, your work in this space?
Thank you very much, Mr. Goy, and good day to everyone. Of course, the Department of Education also has a framework for 21st century skills as we implement the K-12 basic education program. And among the pillars of this 21st century framework is the area on information, media, and technology skills, which refers to the ability to gather, manage, use, synthesize, evaluate, and create information through media and technology. These skills allow learners to navigate the fluid and dynamic environment of today's technologically and information-driven society, and empower them to use plurality of information sources, private, government, and community sources, and plurality of voices from people of all levels of society for problem solving, decision making, and ideation, personal, social, economic, and political life. We expect that attention to these skills allows us to expand the life skills. It also strengthens civic participation and amplifies self-expression of individuals to use various technology, computer, and media resources effectively, efficiently, and responsibly. This, of course, as in our own framework, we also cover visual literacy, information literacy, media literacy, technology literacy, digital literacy, among the skills we expect our learners to be able to possess. For the information of the other participants, in the Republic of the Philippines, our survey on functional literacy, education, and mass media on about 2 years ago indicates that our youngsters 10 to 30 years old in terms of their exposure to various forms of mass media indicate that, of course, the most popular in our country, about 63% in rural areas and a bigger percent in urban areas, 69% is TV. But the second most popular media is the internet. In urban areas, it's 63.9%. And in the rural areas, it's 41.1%. And what's perhaps interesting is the exposure of our youngsters to newspapers is very low. It's in fact the last among those media that have been identified in the survey. So we feel that it's really very important for educators, especially in the K-12 program, to be able to ensure that the young learners are given the opportunity to develop high levels of skills along information and media literacy. I am also perhaps interested to learn about what the other countries are doing, because to be very honest, people like myself in the Philippines would have to learn more from our own children who are now college graduates. They would even remind me to be very careful about my sources when I share things on social media, because they would say you have to make sure that what you are sharing is actually an authentic fact instead of fake news. Again, thank you very much, and we look forward to be able to share what we are doing here and at the same time harvest good practices from our peers around the world. Mabuhay po.
Thank you so much, Dr. San Antonio. It's now we've had two senior leaders in education as regards the school system, and we're going to move to another set of officials now. This is senior people in the communications authorities. And our first one, we have Mr. Peter Ikumilu, who is standing in for Mercy Wanjal. And I see quickly, I did a bit of research here. Mr. Peter Ikumilu, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're an assistant, acting assistant director at the Communications Authority of Kenya. And I see that you have last year been involved in these MIL events and promoting multi-stakeholder engagement. And earlier this year, you participated in the World Radio Day, which is another event on the calendar led by UNESCO. So welcome indeed. So you in the Communications Authority of Kenya, can you tell us, again, just we may having short comments here and not more than 3 minutes, where do you come from as the Communications Authority of Kenya in relation to this issue of media and information literacy in your space of operation?
Well, thank you very much. And again, may I apologize for on behalf of Madam Mercy, who was not able to come. And she has asked me to represent her. I hope I represent her very well. Yes, and your research is very accurate. We've been involved in quite a few activities in regard to media literacy and information. Well, first, may I share that to us, media and information literacy is important because when it is understood, it encompasses knowledge, skills, and attitudes that enable citizens to understand the role and functions of media and other information providers in democratic societies. It also brings the understandings of the functions and conditions necessary for information to be well utilized and articulated by the general populace. It is also critical for the populace to have the information, especially on media, which will help them in terms of authority, having authority, credibility, and current purpose. Therefore, enhancing media and information literacy to us, it helps for intercultural competencies among the global citizens and Kenyan citizens to promote knowledge society and foster the development of free, independent, and pluralistic media, and universal access to information and knowledge for good governance. Media literacy is important for us for cohesive regulatory environment, because when the views and listeners are enlightened, when the viewers and listeners are enlightened, they are more receptive to progressive regulation of the media sector, which is at the heart of the broadcast regulation. Thank you very much.
Unmute. Thank you very much, Mr. Peter Ikumilu from the Communications Authority of Kenya. So let me introduce our next speaker, who is Madame Latifa Taya, Directrice of the Department Études et Développement at the Haute Autorité de la Communication Audiovisuelle. That's the Moroccan communications regulator. This communications regulator actually a few years ago organized a Pan-African conference of regulators who licensed broadcasters to discuss what they could do to promote media and information literacy when they give their licenses, what conditions they require from broadcasters. She's also a very well published author, and so this is wonderful because we have somebody who is also understands the creative world, and I think this media and information literacy has to take account also of that side of people, their creative side. But tell us, Madame Taya, please, from the point of view of the Autorité de la Communication Audiovisuelle, what are you doing, or what is your position? We'll come later to what you're doing, but what is your understanding at the authority about MIL and your role in relation to it?
Good morning, everybody. First of all, I want to thank you for your invitation on behalf of the High Authority for Audiovisual Communication, HACA of Morocco. From HACA perspective, media information literacy is an eminently democratic project and constitutes a right for the citizen. In that regard, MIL has to be a public service mission. And concretely, this necessarily requires a strong state commitment on the setting up of a structural policy enabling information literacy to be included in sustainable action with voted public funding allocated to this project. That's why I want to go to the first point. What is the challenge is advocacy. Advocacy to make the legislative text evolve in favor of a national policy of media information literacy that we don't have yet in Morocco. It must be a prerequisite for the structural development of media and digital literacy and for its inclusion as a public policy set in stone. In Morocco, the mission entrusted to the audiovisual communication regulator in terms of MIL and public protection is enshrined in the law. And MIL has become part of the statutory duties of HACA, the High Authority for Regulation of Morocco, in 2016. But to achieve this, Haka has to make advocacy, to advocate with the Moroccan government and parliament to make MIL promotion part of its legal assignment. So the advocacy effort succeeded in September 2016 with the enactment of the law that reorganized Haka, reorganizing Haka. And I will share concretely what does it mean later, maybe in our actions, concrete actions. Thank you.
Thank you. Good. Well, we'll come back to that. Really look forward to that. Okay, so we've had two leaders in the education ministries. We've had two regulators. Now we come to the media that is linked to official institutions. And here we have RT, which is the international broadcaster, the external arm of Russia in terms of the voice of presenting the voice of Russia internationally. And we have Alexei Nikolov, who since 2009 is the managing editor of RT. He himself is a winner of many industry awards, and he's also an academic at the Higher School of Economics in Moscow. And he studies there, or I guess teaches also new media and Web 2.0. So from the point of view of an international broadcaster, Mr. Nikolov, please, can you give us, again, just short, your perspective on what is the role of an international broadcaster representing the country in terms of MIL?
Thank you very much, Chairman. Well, we're certainly living in interesting times. I would like to start with quoting a very famous, one of the most outstanding Britons of all time, Bertrand Russell, who wrote, "Our system of education turns young people out of the schools able to read, but for the most part unable to weigh evidence or to form an independent opinion." So Bertrand Russell argued that the most important subject that should be taught at schools, but is not taught at schools, is the art of reading newspapers. And of course, there's been a big change in the world of media since early 20th century. But the principle is still as acute as it ever was. The bigger difference is that the amount of information available has grown exponentially. We, the people of middle age and of senior age, still live in the world of where we believe in newspapers and television, radio, television, and we still think in this old 24/7 mindset. We still, no matter what we say, subconsciously, we still believe the news should be delivered to us 24/7. Well, it's not true anymore. We live in the world which is 86,407. That's how many seconds you have in a day. And that's how frequently our audiences get their news. And realistically, no news outlet can compete with that, because no newsroom in the world can produce news every second. We do not compete with each other anymore. We do not compete. It's not the RT newsroom competing with BBC newsroom or with France 24 newsroom. No more. We compete with this super newsroom, which has about 1 billion BJs, broadcast journalists, that produce content on their mobile phones every second, every day. And we cannot compete with them in terms of the amount of information we produce. The only way for us to be competitive and to deliver what we promised to deliver when we chose this profession is to make sure our news is reliable. Our news is more balanced than what people get from internet. And this is basically the biggest challenge. And we, quite honestly, all of us in this business are not exactly up to this challenge yet.
Thank you so much. And let's come back later to hear how do you, as a broadcaster, raise people's ability to distinguish what is more balanced news and what is not balanced news. So we have our last panelist for the moment, and then we're going to get into further discussion. We have Monsieur Serge Barbet. He is director of CLEMI. CLEMI is the Centre pour l'éducation aux médias et à l'information. This is a very interesting body because it's in the French education system, but it's not a ministry dealing with curriculum like our first two speakers. This is a body, a dedicated body that trains teachers, trains the trainers of teachers, produces resources that can go into the schools at all levels. And our speaker, Mr. Barbet, he himself is not only a long experience as director of CLEMI, but he was also in government. He understood what it meant to be a press advisor in the Ministry of the Rights of Women, Youth, and also sports. And he serves at the moment as well as a member of the Observatory on Education and Social Cohesion in the French regulatory body, which is the CSA, the Conseil Supérieur Audiovisuel. So, Monsieur Barbet, vous avez la parole.
Merci, cher.
Thank you very much, my dear Guy Berger. You are well informed, I must say. I'd like to thank UNESCO for their invitation as part of this global week on MIL. For us, this is a great pleasure to continue to work on this topic as part of international cooperation, and we must intensify our discussions and our knowledge sharing between states. As we've said, and as others said, we see all around the world a crisis of information, and this is a major issue, as major as the climate crisis for the future of our societies, because the digital sector bears many promises, but it is also a vehicle of information chaos which threatens the stability of our societies. And no future development of our societies can be envisioned without reducing the factors involved in this crisis: the spread of false news, conspiracy theories, hate speech, intolerance, which is fostered by social media, which do not have the technical abilities to moderate them and curb these phenomena. France and many countries across the world has witnessed violence linked to this phenomenon. Therefore, we work on legislative instruments that can help us control the spread of these contents, but given the sheer magnitude of this phenomenon, we need to resort to MIL. I have mentioned cooperation, and I think we need to share good experiences. In France 40 years ago, a specialized center for media education, CLEMI, was created as part of the education system. Our mission is to train teachers on these issues, to strengthen media information on digital citizenship. We deliver and we value education resources, and we transmit them to all actors in the education chain, and we organize events such as the Media and Information Week in school, which has targeted 5 million students. And to conclude with this brief statement, I think it is critical to strengthen international cooperation, and this is the framework in which we are working with UNESCO, but also on the European stage, as we work in expert groups in the European Commission on media education, and we work on a number of recommendations stemming from the 49 member states of the Council of Europe, which work on these topics.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you. And we'll come back indeed to hear more about, I think you call La Semaine de la Presse and some of the partnerships you have with other actors in France. Those are very interesting experiences. So, okay, let me put a difficult question to everybody. The difficult question is this, that MIL, it should develop critical thinking on the part of people. They should question things. They should be skeptical. Now, everybody here, you are linked to officials in one way or another. You are officials. And sometimes when people look at officials, they think, oh, you know, we have a top-down thing. People are telling us what to do. We don't believe them. Let me ask Her Excellency Minister Mochecha, I'm sure when you are dealing with teachers and teachers' unions, they say to you, look, we already have enough problems. Now you want us to do something else. Why don't you pay us more instead of give us more work? I'm sure to the students, the learners in the schools, they will say, what do these old people want to teach us about TikTok? We know this stuff. So how do you establish your credibility as the ministry to say this is an important question and that teachers and learners should put some time and enthusiasm into it? Because if they're just critical, they'll be critical of you. Over to you.
You know, COVID-19, for all its disruptions, had also very positive outcomes. Because I think we're all threatened, we're all scared, we're all confused. For a strange reason, it brought us to very close with teachers, because when we had to confront COVID-19, we agreed as the department that we have to collaborate, we have to partner, we have to consult. And ever since, the atmosphere has been quite clear. You know, when we were running the vaccination for teachers, we were at 80% within a short space of time, because they had lost quite a number of their members. So they also felt the obligation to support, so that during this atmosphere, on matters of misinformation that are a threat to the state, we're quite close. We recently had a terrible situation in a country where through misinformation, the country was on fire. And again, all adults were threatened, because it threatened jobs, it threatened livelihoods, and it threatened people's safety. So I think realizing the difficulties of misinformation and its impact, that we all have a common interest of creating a very safe environment and really creating partnerships. So thanks to COVID-19, we have, on that part of information and of safety, we are in one with the teachers. And we just had negotiations about salaries, and it never came. So we all even agreed that let's even park the salaries. We are faced with a bigger problem, national problem, which is your national security from COVID-19, but also from misinformation that had put the country on fire at some stage because of misinformation that was spread. So up to now, we've been able to get together, and it's thanks to COVID-19.
Well, thank you for that. That's really heartwarming to hear. And although, of course, COVID is such a tragedy, as you say, it can get people to realize this is a common public interest, and these skills are so important. So let me ask our panelist from the Philippines, Dr. Diosdado San Antonio. I don't know the situation in Philippines, but when young people hear their teachers saying things, aren't they saying, okay, you tell us to be critical, well, you know, I mean, we want to be critical, and we'll be critical of you, the teachers. So how do you deal with this issue?
Thank you very much for that question, Mr. Guy. One thing going in my favor is the fact that I started out in the Department of Education as a classroom teacher myself 36 years ago. So people perceive me as someone who really feels and understands the challenges being faced by everyone in the Department of Education. So yeah, the push for the learners and our fellow teachers to be critical in approaching information has been easier for me as an official of the Department of Education, because of the belief of many that yes, I represent everyone else. So whatever it is I say, and in my previous life as a regional director in the biggest of all regions in the Department of Education, we're a bureaucracy of almost 1 million people. We have 16 regions. I was in charge of one region, about 120,000 teachers. I really demonstrated that an official could be transparent, ethical, and accountable. I maintain a Facebook page of governance ambassadors. About 28,600 fellow teachers are in that group, able to communicate with me anything that they want to actually say. So the communication channel is very open. So we have really demonstrated that regardless of your position, you can still feel and sense and behave like you belong to everyone. I feel that's one way that we've been able to somehow effectively communicate the need for everyone to support us in everything that we had to do as we tried to ensure learning continuity during the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You know, when I joined UNESCO, I was an academic before. People in the civil society said to me, "You are now becoming a grey bureaucrat. We will not believe you anymore." And I had to say to the civil society, you can and should be critical and hold me to account. But, you know, believe me, there are some things here that I will say that I hope will be trustworthy to you. And it's a question of building this reputation, I suppose, over time. Now, let's ask our regulators, communication regulators, on the same question, because here, you, the regulators, when somebody comes to you for a license and you say to them, you must have so much, if you're going to broadcast, you must have so much news, you must have so much local music, you must also have a program on media and information literacy. I'm sure that these broadcasters will say to you, but it costs money, but people are not interested, but we are losing money with competition with the social media. You know, why are you giving us this extra burden? You want us to teach people to be critical of broadcasting. Now we will be critical of you, the regulator. Am I right? Is this the case? Mr. Ikumilu in Kenya, do the broadcasters accept that when they get a license that you should be able to demand that they pay attention to this question?
In Kenya, the law gives the regulator the power to establish broadcasting standards. We call it programming code. In the programming code, you come up with the different types of program that the broadcaster has to air. Yes, as you have rightly said, we come up with something called the local content quota, whereby we say at least 40% of the content must be local. But something interesting that I've seen in the Kenyan setting is that there's a lot of niche programming. In the niche programming, we're having different broadcasters focusing on different things. And education is one of the areas in which I've seen a lot of stations focusing on education, okay? And with this, we're having a lot of information. Something else that I've seen with the advancement of technology, we, as a regulator, we are licensing many players in the field. And this is very important for MIL, because when we have different voices, the probability of one voice monopolizing the media space is reduced. So all the players have to do their best to give the audience the accurate information, because once people realize that you are always airing something that is not very accurate, you start losing audience. Yeah, and so we feel that as we embrace technology as a regulator, license more players in the field, we have more accurate information outside there. Okay, and then also as a regulator, we have other initiatives that we go out into the field and engage the audience, or engage the stakeholders and ask them, what are we doing wrong or what are we doing right? And then we also bring in the different players into the same conversation. What are they doing wrong? And we have found it very, very effective in the Kenyan setting, because the normal citizen is able to interact with the players both in the telecom field and also in the broadcasting. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Madame Taya with the Haka in Morocco.
Yes, what we answer to the operator when they ask us for a license, we said that the plurality of operators is not enough to ensure pluralism. And our mission is not the plurality of operator, but the plurality of information and the plurality of the content. So it's very important for them in order to get the license to be different, to have an added value. So for us, it's important. That's why it's the media information literacy is also included in their cahier des charges in order to make them responsible and involved in this issue. So that's why for us, it's like a prerequisite too.
Mm-hmm. Can you give us an example? For example, say you have a cahier de charge for a radio, or let me say private television. What will it say
for public
about
service broadcasting? For public service broadcasting, and then for private, you know, you have for example pictograms. You have many skills in order to make people aware, but you know, the law is now need to be maybe updated for this, but there are some obligations.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Well, this is takes us directly on to Mr. Alexei Nikolov. I don't know, Mr. Nikolov, if your cahier de charge, your mandate requires you to promote MIL, or if it's a voluntary practice. But how do you build your credibility to say to viewers, look, there are different views on this question. This is what we are presenting, but you should be critical and skeptical, and you should look at a range of media. That kind of question. How do you deal with this as a broadcaster that's an international broadcaster?
Mr. Berger, as you rightfully said, we are bound not only by our own standards, but by our own style guide, but also by the demands from the regulators from whom we get licenses to maintain certain degree of impartiality. And it was very refreshing to hear previously the two regulators from Kenya and from Morocco that they are open to different views and different viewpoints. This is generally what where we see our mission: present people alternative opinion. No news outlet, no medium can ever be 100% neutral. This is just unattainable. This is impossible. Whoever tells me we run 100% objective and balanced news coverage is probably, to me, this person doesn't really know what he or she is talking about. No, this is impossible, and we all know that. Our mission is to make sure our audience have access to different opinions, providing they are all properly balanced, they are not factually untrue, they do not contain mispresented facts. The facts should be correct always. The interpretation, the balance, the coverage will never be 100% neutral. And this is the most important thing, that the audience, the consumer has the possibility, the right to choose. And I would say that what has changed recently is it's not the regulators that influence the people's perception as much anymore. This is something that we know how to deal with. We have our discussions with the regulators, but they know they work with a clear set of rules. You can argue with a regulator, you can discuss things, you can even solve your contradictions in the court of law, and you may lose. And that happens to us occasionally, and that's fine. The bigger problem is that now we face the real unabashed censorship, and that's, everyone knows, is the censorship from the social networks, and they work under their own opaque, non-defined, very often non-defined set of rules, which you often cannot challenge. And very often, even if you challenge it, if you overturn the decision, the damage has been done. You've been labeled as someone who is distributing misinformation or disinformation, and even the social networks management eventually admits, no, that was a wrong decision, but the damage has been done. So my big concern is that we are entering, or actually we have already entered the world of new censorship, which works by their own opaque set of rules and which basically exists in their own small world. What we're doing is we're doing what we can. We're trying to make sure that on every piece of news that we deliver, we are factually true. We are present in some form the alternative, the opposing viewpoint. And if occasionally we make a mistake, which everyone does occasionally, we make sure we always correct that mistake, and we always make sure it was inadvertent.
Okay, well, thank you for that. So the last voice I want on this theme is Mr. Serge Barbet from CLEMI, Center for Media and Information Literacy in France. What we are dealing with here is, in some ways, initiatives that come from state-linked actors like the CLEMI, which in a way can be seen as top-down sometimes. How do you overcome any resistance from people, in your case, teachers or even students, pupils? How do you establish your bona fides and your credibility that actually your interests are their interests, and that they can, as a result of engaging with you as the CLEMI, they will be better able to really make their own judgment, what is misinformation, what is disinformation, and that you are not trying to tell them what is the one and what is the other. So over to you, Monsieur Barbet.
C'est le grand défi qu'il nous revient de réaliser.
I would say the big challenge that we've just faced is the fact that CLEMI is very original set up because it's a part of the French education ministry, so it has an institutional role, but also it's a network of practicing teachers on the ground. So there are two dimensions here. It's both institution and pragmatic, actually working with young people. And it's because we're on the ground that we have that legitimacy. So we don't feel that it is really top down. We're not imposing public policy to be imposed on the ground without any discussion or experimentation. In fact, it's the opposite. And it's because you have the interaction of those two thrusts that we are original. So we feel that we are working both with teachers, students, and media players all together, because for us, MIL, understanding media, seems to us to be vital in the real context of how you use such tools in classrooms. And as far as possible, of course, we want to draw on the know-how of information professionals as well, who come and work with teachers, helping them to implement this type of education. So the aim here is obviously not to train young reporters or future journalists. That's not what we're about. The aim is to develop a critical thinking in young people and to turn them into free citizens who are media and information literate rather than being manipulated by media and information. This is vital today, given social media and the digital platforms we talked about so much, and whose business model is based on attracting people's attention, getting them to spend time on applications. So these are sophisticated tools, which mean that we have to understand how they function. And people and young people in school have to do that. So I would say that is how we work together. We are in education. We come from the press and the media, but also we are digital experts, or we have digital experts that will help us to use these tools properly. All these tools that we all have available with this kind of device, that even the youngest kids are given these days. The European average is 11 for the age at which children are given a digital device without the necessary training in how to use it. And this device, this tool today, is highly sophisticated and is connected with other tools that have been designed to capture their attention for as long as possible. So what we're doing is facing new teaching and learning challenges, and that is what we are trying to do by modestly making our contribution to the system.
Thank you. It may be modest, but it is quite interesting that in the education system, you have the specialized body to give special attention and to be, as you say, networks. I mean, what is the value add to the French education system from having such a component, where a special, targeted, dedicated body that also has its specialized networks?
I would say the value added is our ability to scale up. We have about 860,000 teachers in France for 13 million pupils. And the big educational challenge of our century is how to cope with the challenges of the digital revolution. And so it's about making sure that the trainers and educators in broad sense have the necessary skills to train our young people and pass on this know-how in the area of digital in the broad sense, covering a very broad range of aspects in terms of digital citizenship, where we can see that these are challenges that are common to all people, and also the scientific and digital challenges where being literate with computer codes in the broad sense too is what enables digital assistance. So we're talking about taking the school system forward in general. And that's what we have to do by meeting this challenge. And of course, we cooperate enormously with our fellows on the international scene, and having a specific tool in the education system is a very strong advantage.
And just while I have you, I know that, if I'm correct, one of your activities is the Week of the Press. Can you just tell us a little bit, how does Clemi, what happens in this, I mean, as a good practice?
Alors, la semaine de la presse et des médias dans l'école.
The Press and Media Week goes back a long way in our schools. This is the 33rd time that we'll be organizing it next March. So the 33rd time this event's been organized, and it's based on agreement between the Education Ministry and Press and Media. For a week, we disseminate more than 1.2 million magazines and papers to all our schools at all levels, so that our teachers can work with teachers to develop such pedagogical practices. Obviously, we've made huge progress now. It's not just about sending out copies of papers and magazines. It's also about giving access, free access to digital platforms and providers so that schools can host MIL teams or teaching teams. And quite clearly, the pandemic has pushed this development forward. We've had online seminars and conferences, which means that we can all work together with information professionals and teachers in front of pupils, looking at everything related to this area where we're talking about checking information, checking sources, countering conspiracy theories, getting pupils to set up their own digital media. That sort of thing we do on this occasion.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's very interesting. The idea of getting pupils to have their own clubs to focus on this issue, for example. Well, let me, on this new theme of what are the interesting practices, Minister Motshekga, are there any things that you think are worth sharing being done in South Africa, maybe partnerships with the SABC, the public broadcaster, or other initiatives to have a certain time on the calendar to raise this issue from an educational point of view? Of course, we do know as the National Commission, you've mobilized a lot of interest in the country to jump onto this week, this global MIL week. But is there anything you particularly would like to share with us?
You know, we had a surprise development, which I didn't know or expect that it will turn out the way it did. And mainly it came from security concerns, and it was convened by South African police and invited us as a department and all other related departments like your communications department, which then brought all the partners together. And the main aim really was to understand the platforms in which our children participate, what were the threats, what were the difficulties, and what is it that we can do to support them, but also to give us a deeper understanding. And it really gave us an insight into, I mean, as an adult, I didn't know that there were so many platforms that our children were involved in, and what those platforms were up to, and how we can bring them, because that's what came from that meeting, how we can bring them in the classroom to teach our children to be more critical about the spaces they find themselves. And I'm told when they were taken into classes, young people were quite surprised that adults knew about these social platforms they were participating in and what those platforms were about. And it became a very helpful tool just to get a discussion going and an understanding even from the adult section of really understanding the social space that we find ourselves, because we are on a few WhatsApp. You just think that's what you see on WhatsApp. You think that's what children are conversing about. You don't know about all these other platforms they are on, which you never pay attention to. And I think it's useful to have an ongoing research, even to empower even the adults who are supposed to guide children about these spaces, because sometimes it overtakes us. They are much ahead of the adults who are supposed to guide. They don't know what these spaces are about, these young people are about. So I think research and ongoing investigation around the social media and the platform and using them as a tool for instruction to say, use it. I mean, so say it's all like Alex said, there's millions of information coming to our kids. And the platform was saying, how do we help funnel them out, sift them out, and make sure that whatever decision, it's an informed decision. So I thought it was I mean, if I have to share the few experiences, we've not been able to do a more formal structure like your SABC and other media. There is some, I think, standoff. The media wants to be seen as clean, pure, so it wouldn't want to, I think, from where I said, to be contaminated by government influences. The more they are critical of government, I think that's the more they see themselves as independent and free. I mean, SABC, from where I sit, is more critical of government than even your independent broadcasters, because I think their credibility relies on being more critical, being more negative, and therefore they will get the end, the status of being credible. The better stations are your community stations, which have a bigger outreach, where you can get people discussions, you can get grannies and everybody phoning in. And those are normally not your glamorous platforms, but those are platforms which reach the majority of people. And we've also found it quite helpful to work through them, because it's people who, unlike, as I said, so community stations, they're not working for glory and glamour, but just to reach people. And I've found those much more helpful, really, in opening discussions and even criticizing government, and also in sharing any other information that you may not necessarily access, either because of your social interactions and are not close to the community on the ground. So I found also community stations very helpful, and community TV stations very helpful as compared to your big glamorous stations like your SABC and the big stations that I think are working very hard for credibility. And they get their money from advertisers, so they don't want to alienate their sponsors by being seen to be defending government. So it's not been very helpful. Yeah, I think from a government perspective, but I'm sure from the business perspective, perhaps it's been helpful to be very critical of government.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. That's very interesting. And if I can be so bold as to have a challenge for you, that if we come back in 1 year's time, will you be able to tell us about an initiative with the community radios to use this special week in the calendar between education department as catalyst of some discussions with the community radios around this issue, because it's not going away. So I leave that with you, Minister. You really are doing it.
We need it ourselves more than anything. We need it to really get more that literacy awareness in our communities. We are in a very difficult space as a country. The COVID anti-lobbies have really brought our vaccination program to a very difficult situation, and we do need an anchor and an excuse like your literacy week to go back to communities as part of now not telling them to vaccinate, but using the vaccination lobby groups as a way of educating people to be more critical of information, to be more sensitive to the fact that if people don't vaccinate, they really threaten everybody's well-being. So we need it more than, as I say, just really being able to report next year. We need these spaces to deal with our anti-vaccination, but also our safety situation in the country.
Yeah.
So I can promise you, because we need it.
Yes, absolutely. I'm sure people will be very interested. People are watching in other countries, because these problems really, they are not unique to South Africa. Even we saw in the USA recently, the disinformation, misinformation, and the lack of media and information literacy led to this misguided march on the US Congress. I mean, so it happens in a country like that, and so these are really global questions. Let's ask Dr. San Antonio, anything that you are doing in the Philippines you would like to share that could be a good initiative or a kind of a partnership that others might be interested in?
Actually, in our K-12 program, media and information literacy is a core subject. So we expect everyone who completes K-12 program, the basic education, to be at least given the foundational information and knowledge relative to how it is to be media and information savvy in this 21st century. We also make sure that the concepts are embedded in many other learning areas as well. We are now in the midst of updating our curriculum, and we hope to be able to really make sure that the inputs of our partners, and of course, we always are glad to note that the partners are available always in making sure that the things that we do are responsive to the challenges of the times. I just would like also to again mention that the fact that my own sons are the ones telling me on how to be careful about how I should react on like things that are forwarded to me using the Facebook is something that also demonstrates that indeed the younger generations are more aware about the need to be careful about information that are found on our various media channels. So we hope to be able to sustain efforts in enriching the curriculum and the delivery of the program using contributions from our partners, because of course we don't claim to be the only ones who know about the most appropriate ways of making sure that the youngsters are fully enabled in terms of media and information literacy. Thank you.
And you mentioned your own sons, and you mentioned partners. Are there youth groups in Philippines that could be engaged with in a partnership to bring the message of the education department to young people, and that young people in their civil society, they begin to look more at these questions?
Of course, we have organized our supreme student governments. There's a federation at the different levels, and we communicate with them. Even during this COVID-19 pandemic, we were able to organize with the secretary in attendance a forum with our student leaders, who allowed us to also hear their sentiments, and of course this covers the proper management of information as well during these very difficult times for all of us. The other thing that I wanted to add is the fact that, of course, the digital divide is also an issue in the Philippines. And what we have done is we make sure that the priority groups, those coming from disadvantaged classes, we call them the last mile schools, the schools that are in far-flung areas. When they have signals, they are our priority when our donors come to us in terms of distributing, smartphones and others, because we know that those living in the urban centers have more access to these gadgets.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Well, thank you for that, sharing that. Let's turn to our regulators, Mr. Ikumilu. I don't know the statutes of the Communications Authority of Kenya. I don't suppose in the statutes there is an obligation for the Communication Authority to promote media and information literacy. On the other hand, it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, because I'm sure probably your statutes do tell you to promote education in broadcasting, and this is a special kind of education about communications, in fact. Do you think that there's possibility to institutionalize in some sort of once a year or ongoing way that the Communications Authority of Kenya might give more attention to this issue in partnership with the Education Department of Kenya, or in partnership with librarians, or in partnership with youth? In what way can Communications of Kenya more mainstream this question of the importance of media and information literacy as part of communications through your ability to regulate?
Well, thank you. First, the Kenya Information and Communication Act empowers the authority to promote diversity of programming, and, as I said earlier, to set the media standards. So there are many ways we can approach this. One way is encouraging the broadcasters to do something. But more importantly, we're thinking about reviewing the broadcast regulation so that we require the broadcasters to do something called public service announcement. Public service announcement, if made mandatory, and at a unique time like this week, we can be able to require the broadcasters to air something on MIL. We think that's a good thing. We also are working closely with the Kenyan chapter of MIL, which was established in 2013. We could like them to be a little bit more active, so that as we approach the necessary governmental office, our seniors we can tell them that, hey, there is this male chapter and they want to do this, and they can be able to get a better audience doing that. We're also looking at maybe next year, if we can be able to allocate the whole week and have an activity, maybe as an organization, to mark MIL, just to bring the awareness aspect. More so now that we are approaching the election in Kenya, we believe it's very important for us to to fight disinformation and misinformation in the country. So those are some of the things that we're thinking about, and we'll see how we will go about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You know, it just warms my heart that after the UNESCO member states agreed to recognize this week, then this earlier last year, the UN General Assembly agreed to recognize this week. So you have two key components of the UN saying it's important, and it's music to my ears to hear you say that, well, something could be done on the part of your body with the public service announcements for next year. Excellent. Yes. Wonderful. Well, thank you very much. Madame Taya, you have something you would like to share, good practice about how the Haka is promoting media, or can promote, or partnerships.
Yes, of course, with pleasure. But first of all, let me just react of what have been said before about the importance of regulation, because I want to insist on the fact that regulation is very important and fruitful also. And to go back to the specification called Cahier des Charges in French, we have many articles about the protection of young public. Of course, we have one article also on the necessity to produce programs on media literacy, information literacy, and there are some results, because when you see our annual report on the content which have been constituted transgression of the law, you never find content related to young people, for example. So we believe on the regulation, on the fact that people follow, the operator follow the regulation. And to talk about also operator, we have also to think about cultural and the creative industry. It's not only a relation with operator. And you mentioned, Mr. Guy-Berger, before that we organize a meeting, a conference, international conference, and you can see that when you invite the stakeholders, we also invite people from cinema, from all the chain of value of production of audiovisual content, not only the channels that we are regulating, because it's a collective sensitization. And just to share about good practice, I can share some practice on listening, observing to make reliable diagnosis. For us, it's very important to make our response to evolve. And so it's essential to listen to public on a regular basis. To adapt our response. And in Morocco, you have 91% of people under 15 years old that use the internet, 69% of whom say that use it without parental control, and 42% of parents say they are not competent to guide their children use of internet. So you can see the challenges we are facing. And we make studies on surveys with different actors. This one was coordinated by National Telecommunication Regulatory Agency. And in order to deepen also its understanding of the uses, perception and expectation of young people in collaboration with the Ministry of Education, HACA organized nearly 20 focus groups in different regions of Morocco, and it was very striking to note the extent to which the digital native school children and college students feel they have they have a better grasp of digital tools than adults. So furthermore, we have been surprised also by increase in confidence to the point where, for example, many children are reclassifying pictograms, feeling confident. That's why I was talking about the necessity maybe to to think about updating our specification. They feel very confident on this, that they know better than the elder which programs are age appropriate and which are not. So for us, this field of observation are essential to re-examine our regulatory tools and to promote adapted access to audiovisual content. And they should focus on all ages group, not only on young audience. And another practice very interesting we want to share is about raising awareness to ensure that the action of public actors are pedagogical for the citizen. I will take some examples on the spirit of citizen regulation that we try to instill. Well, the regulator is often apprehended as a judge who intervenes after the fact to punish transgression of the law, including the dissemination of false information. Has a real mission to raise awareness among citizens. But it has several means at its disposal for this purpose, and I will illustrate just one example, the pedagogy of sanction. When we sanction a media for a breach of the law, we do not limit ourselves with addressing the operator. We also inform the public in a very precise way of the reason why the sanctioned audiovisual content constitutes a breach of the fundamental rights listed in the Constitution. So this pedagogy allows both the operator and the citizen to understand in a concrete way why a piece of information constitutes a breach. So for us, and since 1970, citizens have the opportunity to self-report breaches through a remote reporting system in our platform, and more citizens are doing so. That means that more citizens are aware on what they are watching to or listening to. So for us, we believe that the citizen regulation is in progress. And just to say also, just maybe one last point on our practice, to give an example, it's about publication of content analysis studies that decrypt stereotypical content. For example, on gender issues, or studies that show the exclusion of category of population from media. As you know, MIL has a key role to play in the fight against social inequalities, sexism, racism, for the integration of population. So our publication shows the key role of media in social inclusion, in political pluralism, diversity challenges. I have many other examples, but I don't want to monopolize. So I don't know if I have still...
Yes, thank you so much for sharing those. That is all, I mean, they're so interesting. And I think the Haka should consider to convene another conference to share all the details that but the other regulators, communication regulators, especially around Africa. I just want to respond to two things you said. The one is that MIL is also part of the citizens' role in regulation. And I think that is something that we haven't said yet in this panel, but it's so important because the citizens can and should know what they can expect and what kind of standards they want to see in their media and their social media. And that's, you know, I really like that point you made. And then I wanted to ask you another thing. Could you just repeat those statistics that you gave about how many young people are using internet and their parents, the percentage of parents who cannot?
So under 15, you have 21% of people under 15 that use internet. And 42% of parents say they are not competent to guide their children use of the internet. But just to go back about what you say concerning the fact that citizens are more and more aware, we know that it's very challenging. And what we have to increase is our ability to explain and to make our decision simpler and easier to be understood in order to build a model of regulation which relies on the citizen. And to do so, we need to ensure that citizens take ownership of the regulation exercise, and it's very challenging and exciting.
Thank you. I think those are very interesting points. If I can also just comment on the statistics you gave, that it's super to have that information, because of course it now impacts on on how you regulate. I'm sure the education ministry in Morocco is interested in that. Civil society is interested in that. And so this really seems to me to signal that all the actors who are linked to states can really help us understand the issues by doing research. I would just remind the people in this discussion that recently some research was leaked research by Facebook. And this Facebook research, which I think was conducted in the US and the UK, it showed that the Facebook product, the Instagram, that 1/3 of the young girls using Instagram feel very bad by using it because of the images they get about what is beauty and the way it is channeling them to unrealistic standards. Now, what's important to have that research is to know that there's a certain category of young girls, in this case, who need a special MIL, that they should be able to know why is it that this engagement is making them feel bad. How can they distance themselves? How can they become in control of this engagement rather than the engagement controlling them with their identities? And so MIL is just so important to be informed by research, because if indeed you have in schools then in these two countries 1/3 of teenage girls feeling bad, well, you need a special course on why is Instagram making you feel bad? How do you understand this engine that is giving you this kind of content? How do you get on top of it? And I think I would really congratulate the Haka for your research and encourage others who can do research to do research in this whole area.
Yes, and thank you. And just I will give you an example just about the young people, how to communicate with them. We try to do to publish content that will be kids friendly. How to explain a stereotype to young people, how to explain the danger and many issues related to stereotype to young people. It's very challenging. And I know that Clémy made a very, very interesting work on this by publishing some content. Maybe Sylvie will talk about it. And
okay,
we published also on this.
Right, excellent.
With cartoons.
Well done. So we're beginning to come towards the end, and so I want to ask Alexei Nikolov if there's any partnership or good practice that you would share with others about how your international broadcaster representing your country, how you can, what can you do to raise media and information literacy amongst your audience?
Well, I guess the important thing is that apart from demanding that we have a level playing ground and that we have access to our audience, the very important thing, of course, is to be competitive, to make sure we are interesting to the audience. I mean, it has always been basic, but the amount of competition is absolutely unprecedented. To that end, we were sort of lucky, because RT is only 16 years old. So we emerged together with the Web 2.0. We had the youngest editor-in-chief. Margarita Simonian was 25 years old when she became the editor-in-chief of this global channel, which was unprecedented. We had, and we still have, a very young team of people in our newsroom is perhaps the youngest newsroom. All newsrooms of different language versions are perhaps the youngest of all that exist in the business. And I think we've learned a few things that allow us to remain competitive. And we are more than willing to share this experience with our friends and with our peers from other countries. For about 10 years, we've been doing 3-day courses for the young journalists from all over the world, free. I mean, we do not charge anything for that, which is purely technical. There's nothing about the content. It's purely technical. How do you use social networks? How do you put together a modern newsroom and so on? And we started with doing them offline, but of course, with the pandemic, we started doing it online. and we are always open. So this is what I think we could do. We are very much willing to share our experience, and if anyone wants to send their, again, I repeat, we're doing it online, so you do not need anything to do that, and they are free. If anyone is interested about our experience of how do we use social networks, how do we use the modern new media and so on, we are glad to share our experience. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So Serge Barbet from Clemi. Could you just give us one additional? I know I did ask you about the main of the press, but let me ask you a very particular thing. So now you have, for example, in France, people can access the RT, they can access France 24, they can access BBC and so on. How do you, or do you, help young people understand these different narratives and how they can interpret the different narratives? Do you do that at all?
Nous le faisons évidemment.
Well, we do, obviously, via actions such as the schools press and media week. That's 1,800 providers there or actors involved. So it's very important for the very young even to understand who are the ones setting the news agenda. There's a huge market with fierce competition, with all sorts of different, almost infinite sources. So it's very, very important to get them to hone their reflexes and ask the right questions, as to say that they say, this is a source of information, but where is the news actually coming from? How should I be thinking about checking this? That is the very basis of what we do. And so we work on this at different ages for the pupils, and we address the issues that are key to understanding news and the way young people use information is very important. We get schools to produce their own media, their newspapers, web radios, web TVs, which are very efficient teaching tools so that our young people realize how hard it is to produce reliable and fair education. We organize games that are very useful systems. We have class investigation, for example, which is a tool or a game where pupils team up and try to work as journalists, reporters, and have to deal with all the different sources of information. It's available on our website and it's free of charge as long as you learn how to use the game. And we have online sessions to teach them how to use it. It's a very attractive tool, and thanks to that, we can work on a wide range of issues. In fact, one of the speakers talked about deconstructing stereotypes. And it's true that with MIL teaching, we can get people involved in all the challenges around democracy, our values, gender equality, etc. And so we have pupils' media output concerning such stereotypes. So it is a very inclusive form of teaching that teaches people about democracy, about being open-minded and accepting cultural diversity. This is very important at this time, as I said, when we are having to deal with a new generation of very sophisticated tools and that are very powerful. So we have to make sure that digital is included in all our teaching. So we are working with and on platforms. I heard from Russia today, And it's quite clear that today, media today are transmedia. They're present on these platforms, so we're working with our pupils, teaching them to use these platforms and social network in the right way so that they can go and get information behind the news. So we teach them how to work with those platforms, those tools to get to information. So in this form of education, we have to include an understanding of the business models of platforms and social media. So we have to work at very high level, European level, European schemes, and using the Digital Services Act so that we can work with the science community and make sure that all this is open and transparent as possible about their tools, their algorithms, so that we can make progress. I think I'm going to have to interrupt you.
Merci beaucoup. I'm sorry to cut you short because we're now out of time. I just am cognizant also that Minister Mochecha was mentioning how sometimes MIL is key in a crisis, and we know in France we have occasionally the crises of journalists being beaten by the Gilets jaunes or even by the police. We had the murder of Samuel Paty, the teacher who was teaching MIL. So these are moments when really it brings to the fore that the public and young people, they need to understand that these are really important issues, how to recognize what is journalism, the safety of journalists, the freedom of expression of teachers, the importance of understanding what happens in this communications environment. Dear panelists, I have to wrap up now. I'm sorry, I wanted to give you all one sentence, but we just don't have time. Let me just then say, you have lots of power because you are all linked to officials. And, if you take the word MIL, you can add the word lions, L-I-O-N-N-S. This is en anglais. MIL, lions, millions. We need millions of people to be MIL competent. So please do what you can as officials to really raise the level of competency by the public in your sphere of work. And I do thank you so much for such interesting discussion. We will come back again next year, but between now and then, I'm sure you will not sleep, that you will be busy doing what you can for the MIL. So merci beaucoup à tous. Thank you for the participants. This will also be available on on YouTube, and we will give it a lot of promotion as well. Very good, fruitful thought. I hope everybody learned something. So
thank you very
bonne
much.
journée. Have a good day. À bientôt. Till later.
Excellent job. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
No, thank you.
Media and information literacy empowers people to think critically about information and use of digital tools. Media and information literacy helps people to make informed choices about how they participate in peace building, equality, freedom of expression, access to information, and sustainable development goals in general. UNESCO supports and champions media and information literacy initiatives across the globe. We do this through actions such as capacity building for various stakeholders, developing curricula for educators and learners to aid the integration of media and information literacy in all levels of education, assisting governments and institutions to formulate national media and information literacy policies and strategies, training journalists to promote media and information literacy to build trust in media, strengthening international cooperation and raising awareness through the UNESCO Media and Information Literacy Alliance, supporting youth organisations to integrate media and information literacy into their policies and operations, and become peer educators online, offering a suite of online media and information literacy courses, including ones for policymakers, undertaking research with the UNESCO Media and Information Literacy and Intercultural Dialogue University Network, organising the annual Global Media and Information Literacy Week. With this holistic approach